And good evening, I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And we're the Scanner Guys, and we're live this evening from coast to coast and worldwide right here on our YouTube account. So if you haven't hit subscribe yet, make sure you do that right now. Hit the subscribe button on our YouTube account. So good evening. It's been an interesting day. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And we've got a great show underway for you today. So let's jump right into it.
You got it.
You know, there's a lot of stuff that just went down this week, and if you missed it, we've got some big news. So let's start it off right now. So Scanner Master had a huge announcement over on, what day was it? Yesterday, we announced on the Scanner Master Facebook page that the Dayton Hamvention has been canceled. As we can see here, I'll bring Rich into the shot as well. Dayton Hamvention, no Dayton Hamvention for 2021. May will be empty without Hamvention.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. That's 2 years in a row now, of course, and it's a whole lot of fun going to Hamvention. It's just not going to be the same without it.
Yeah, and so the Dayton Hamvention is going to go as planned for 2022. The dates have been announced. As long as everything gets under control with COVID and so on, it'll be May the 20th to the 22nd. Rich Barnett, the owner of Scanner Master, not to be mixed up with that other Rich Barnett that's in the news. Not
the one that's not in jail.
Rich Barnett states that we will be in Dayton in 2022. So definitely mark those dates on the calendar. Hopefully the both of us will be there. And it's sad to see that, but, I totally understand it. They're trying to take as much precautions as possible.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I love going to Hamfests, and Dayton is like the, nirvana of all Hamfests, but it's, I miss going to them.
Yeah. I mean, I went to it the one time and was hoping to go again, but, we'll see what happens.
Oh, we had such a blast.
Yeah, I mean, this is how these Scanner Guys were born at the Dayton Hamvention. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll have to do another road trip to Dayton and so on. But good evening, everybody that's joining us. Hopefully you're having a great Wednesday. Tonight, we're going to talk about connectors, coax cable connectors, computer connectors, all things connectors.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tom... You're right. I was just talking to Rich during the show opening. He does need to get some sun.
Yeah.
He's pretty washed out.
Well, yeah, I need to get some sun. It's been cold here. It's been really cold. It's only been in the 60s all winter. So it's a little cold, and yeah. So I do need to get some tanning in, but
oh boy,
yeah.
Just don't overdo it. We don't want you to look crispy.
Oh yeah. Well, I spent 20 minutes outside in August out here, and I'll be crispy. So
yeah. So definitely, 60s. Yes, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
The 60s are great temperatures to have, that's for sure, in this time of the year, if you're able to enjoy that. It's been a little chilly here in the Carolinas.
It is a lighting thing, and so we're going to take up a GoFundMe to send Jonathan out here to take care of my lighting for me.
Yes. So, I think I finally mastered the lighting here in the North Carolina studios.
Yep.
So we got a different camera angle here, if you notice that. So experimenting with things as well. Just want to remind you, subscribe to the Scanner Master newsletter. They are, of course, the sponsor of our show. And anytime that you purchase stuff from Scanner Master, you're supporting the Scanner Guys. And we're really looking forward to some great newsletters that come out about once a month. through Scanner Master. Hopefully we'll have some new products to announce this year. Some good sales going on and so forth. I know we will have eventually a new antenna, which I'm not able to say too much about, which will be available relatively soon. I'm kind of excited about that because it's going to work well on a whole bunch of bands. We've had several antennas that have came out. They're really good 800 megahertz antennas, but this is going to be an antenna that's going to work on a variety of bands, which is going to be a huge help to some people out there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yes, I know you are. As New York Pixels has coined you as Casper.
Yeah.
So,
I do have to work on my lighting, and I've got a couple of those studio lights, but that just makes it worse.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll have to come over there and get you all set up.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is tonight's topic of discussion: getting to know scanner connectors. And I remember the first time that we did this show, I was broadcasting from the camper, and we didn't have a slideshow presentation. So we did this topic way back when in 2018, and we did it we pulled out our connectors and we held them up to the camera. Yeah. And we showed them off, each and every one. Here it is, right here. Today we actually have the ability of doing, of course, the slideshow presentation, so you'll be able to show that. Yep, another name for Rich is Curly. Let's take a look at our first set of connectors, Rich. SMAs. Boy, they've really taken on a lot with the various radios that have came out, especially on the Uniden side. I mean, we've seen the first SMAs that we saw was on the 396 and the 346.
Yeah.
Those radios had the SMA connector. And then it continued on with the 436 and then the SDS 100.
Right, and the Home Patrol.
And the Home Patrol as well. So we've got a pretty good collection here. Rich, tell us about, we're going to go from left to right on the screen. Tell us about the first column.
All right, so the first one is the SMA male to Bnc female, and I've got one here. Of course, it's much easier to see on screen. This is the one that is supplied with the 396, both of the 396T and the XT and the 346, the BR330, those type of scanners, as well as the 436 and the Home Patrol. And it just screws on your SMA connector and allows you to put a BNC antenna onto your SMA connector. When those scanners came out, specifically the Home Patrol and the 396 were the first ones to have that, SMA antennas were unusual and not very common. And everybody had BNC antennas. So this allowed you to use your existing antennas. So that was the standard adapter, and it served very well. It was aesthetically nice looking, better looking than the more utilitarian one that came out that has the kind of like the square part on there. But it, or if you take a look at the angle adapter, it's had that one. It's more aesthetically pleasing, and it works very well. And it was made specifically for the Uniden scanners.
So, Rich, without looking at the comments, what is SMA stand for?
I knew this. I just can't remember what it stands for now. I'm sorry.
To be honest with you, I had to look it up, but Tom has the answer.
Well, of course, Tom knows everything. He
there
does.
It is, right there.
Sub-miniature version A. There you go. Yeah. And, I know Tom, and I've known Tom for 30 years, and he really does know everything.
But yeah, that's I didn't know that off the top of my head. So I ended up looking it up on the other screen, and then I saw Tom's already posted the answer to that. Yep. So yeah, I mean that I like that connector. That connector I've also used on my Home Patrol 1 and 2. because it's a weighted connection. It's going to be a little bit more sturdy versus like the generic connector that we have. Yeah. It's going to have a little bit of weight. And typically what I use that first connector for is I'll use that on my home patrol, and then I'll use the telescopic antenna that we get with a 996 or a 536. And that typically works pretty well. You know, if you're looking for something that's a little bit taller than the stock antenna, I've used that, and that works pretty well there. Now we have this next connector, Rich. It looks like a connector. So if you had an SMA antenna that you loved, you could use that SMA antenna on your scanner that has the Bnc connection.
Yeah, it's exactly the opposite of the connector, of the first connector. So you have the male Bnc to plug into your scanner that has a Bnc connector, like your 325 or one of the Whistlers, and it allows you to use your SMA antenna. So it's exactly the opposite of the first connector.
Yeah, and that's and that can be useful at times. And then the next one is simply a 45-degree angle. Bnc male to SMA male to SMA female.
Yeah, this is great if you have a home patrol scanner and you want to use an SMA type antenna that doesn't have a 90-degree angle built into it. So it allows you to take it and plug it into. I actually use these on my rack where I've got my, I don't know if you can't see it here, but I've got my SDS 100 on that rack, and I use that so that the cable goes back instead of up and over.
I get you. So it's kind of a cosmetic thing for you to have it so it's at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, that's 90 degrees.
90 degrees. What I'm thinking. 45 45 would be at a different, like a different angle.
Yeah, that's half the angle, so it'd be kind of off the kilter. But yeah, that's the right angle adapter. It allows you to have your antenna go straight up on a home patrol, or if you have a handheld scanner, it allows you to place the scanner on the desk and then still have the antenna go straight up.
Okay, so let's continue on here with our connectors. F connectors. Now, we typically see these a lot with cable television. Typically, the F connectors used on coax cables. We had your favorite, the ST2, which used F connectors, F connector at the top of the antenna, and then you would use the adapter that's all the way over to the right would come in the kit. It would have 50 feet of coax cable, and then you would attach the F female to Bnc male to the coax cable there.
Yep, and that's the adapter that comes with the ST2, my absolute favorite antenna of all time, and it is very useful because 75 ohm coax, TV style coax, actually works very well for scanner antennas. And if you're not transmitting through it, it works really well, especially with the ST2, which was designed specifically for that. And it does work very well. And then this allows you to connect it directly to your scanner. I actually use Rg6 Quad Shield coax for some of my antennas going up into the attic, and they've worked very well.
I've used it before in the past, and a lot of times if I don't want to be bothered with putting on an adapter, I'll just use one of those connectors there and just be able to go from there. And then there's a couple other connectors we have available. Let's go back over to the right, over to the left, excuse me. We have the Bnc female to F male. And that is purely the opposite, almost, of what's over on the right. And how is this, Rich? How would this connector be useful?
That's if you have a Bnc cable and you want to plug it into like your F antenna. So if you've got ST2 or other antenna using a female F connector, but your cable has got a Bnc male on it, then you can actually connect that on there and then use that. I actually have a really good TV style preamp that I've used for years and years, and where I've had my ST2 going into that preamp, and then I use a BNC to BNC cable coming out of that preamp to go to the scanner, and that's where I've used that adapter in the past.
And then, of course, the middle one is one of the most popular, for scanner antennas is the end connector, and that you could use that adapter if you're connecting up to the Austin Ferret, for example.
Yep.
And then you're running, a cable that has F connectors on it with that particular adapter there.
Yeah. One neat thing, if you have an end connector, an end male, and you have a Bnc female, they actually mate. So you can actually put take the end connector and the Bnc connector and just push them in, and they work. So you can do that, and that's if you don't have the proper adapter and all you have is the end male and the Bnc female, you can actually push that in there. A technician showed me that trick, and because they use it for their service monitors. It's got a Bnc jack on the front, and all of his jumper cables have got end connectors. Just push it right out there, and it works like a champ.
Perfect. A little trick there. So definitely keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look at some end connectors here. Now, the end connectors are used a lot, as I mentioned in the previous slide, with a lot of scanner antennas and so on. Looking at the various connectors there, typically I've used, depending on coax cable, if it's got the first one that's over to the left, I've used that occasionally with some of my antennas. I would screw that onto the, either one of the two, depending on the connector on there, the one in the center or the one that's way over to the left, connected up to an antenna and then ran my coax cable to the scanner. So basically converted that to a Bnc female, connected up my coax cable, which has a Bnc male, and then ran it right down. And then I only have one connector to deal with. The great thing about Scanner Master is you can order LMR 400 for those long runs and have the appropriate end connector on one end and then have the Bnc on the other. If you're trying to eliminate having multiple connectors, you could use one of these two connectors and have Bncs on both ends.
Yeah, you can do that, and we'll talk about the when and when you shouldn't use adapters a little bit later on. But the end connector is more of a professional connector. If you are buying professional antenna, base station antennas for police departments and stuff like that, they almost all have either an end connector or one that's even more sturdy. But the end connector is much more weather tight than BNCs and UHF connectors or PL259s. But if you're going to use any adapter outside, make sure you weatherproof it. But an end connector is got a good physical connection and a good RF connection, and it maintains the impedance properly. So if you have to choose a connector, if you have your choice, use an end connector. You'll be happier.
Totally. And then you can see the one way over to the right. So let's say if you did have coax cable that did have end connectors on both ends, you could use the Bnc male to end female.
Yep.
All these connectors that we're showing you this evening are available from Scanner Master. And if you've been in this hobby for a long time, you probably have accumulated a few of these over the years.
Just a couple. There's one side, and there's the other side. So, yeah, I've got a few, and I think you've got about as many as I do.
Yeah, so what ended up happening is, when I decided to move, when I moved from Massachusetts to North Carolina, I said I need to get this stuff together because, I have some of my connectors over in this box, and I have some of the connectors here. So what I ended up doing is I had to pack everything anyway, so let me organize while I'm packing things down. and I couldn't get over how many various things. I had so many Bnc to SMAs, because you accumulate them over the years because, sometimes you buy a scanner, like you said, the SMA Bnc adapter comes with so many different radios, you accumulate them if you're not using them all the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a half dozen there or more.
A half. Yeah. I think I've got, I don't know, 300 or 400 different adapters in there. They do accumulate, and I'll go to a ham fest and I'll say, oh, you know what, I better stock up on adapters, and I'll buy a bunch of adapters. Then I realize I've got 17 of those things already. So they do accumulate, but I'm kind of a pack rat, so I never throw stuff like that out. And so I've had those, and you never know. As soon as you throw one away, or you give it away, or you give it to somebody or something like that, a week later, you're going to need that same adapter.
See the comment on the screen right now? Murphy's Law.
Yep.
Right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And chances are you had that one last week.
Yes.
I've done that. I've got to go out and buy an adapter that I gave away or threw away the week before.
Yeah. So. I mean, that's why it was a big push for me to be able to put everything together. Just so, when I am looking for it, I've got a container which is back over here.
Yeah. And Tom, we're going to get to your comment soon, so be patient.
Let's see. How many minutes after the hour?
20. Tom's comment at 20 after.
20 after. Oh.
Yeah.
Let's address it right now.
Okay, sure. Do it.
So yeah, we're going to go into that a little bit more in detail. Rich, tell us a little bit about your box.
All right, this is a Plano fishing tackle box. I actually got this. The Plano factory is in a little town called Plano, Illinois. It's about 75 miles outside of Chicago. And I was on a railfan trip, and the BNSF tracks are like right there going through town. And I saw the Plano company store, and I'm like, no, can't be. And I went in there. Sure enough, they had every tackle box and tote box and thing you could imagine. So I picked up this and about a half a dozen other different ones. My wife thought I was nuts, but then she was like, ooh, I could use that for sewing stuff. She ended up with a couple boxes too.
Yeah, we actually have coming up in our scanner tip of the week, we're going to tell you a couple different other places to look for things like this. I mean, a lot of times, like that's a perfect example, for all the tackle and stuff, that a fisherman would use is ideal for, adapters. As you can see there, there's plenty of sections. The great thing about it too, Rich, if you show it again, just flip it up again so we can see.
Yeah.
So right there, that top section would be perfect for rubber duck antennas. If you had extra rubber duck antennas, because it's a huge slot there, and then you have, it's ideal for each one of the little boxes for the various connectors.
Yeah. One thing to remember with these things is when you pick it up, make sure that both of these things are latched.
Yes, because it will create a huge mess.
Yeah, several times I've had to go out and collect all these adapters after I've dropped them all out on the floor because I forgot.
Yeah, because you spend time sorting them out. You're putting the such and such BNC to so and so together, and it creates a huge mess. I've done that a time or two myself.
Yeah, and usually at the absolute worst possible time.
So, our next slide, Uniden kind of threw us through a loop a little bit. We had our SMA to BNC adapters. We could use it on any radio. We could mix and match. And then the SDS 100 came out.
Why did they do that? Well, I know why, but it was just like, oh, if I had hair, I'd be pulling it out,
And this is the common thing that we see with a lot of our customers that call Scanner Master. They misplaced that adapter that's on the screen there.
Uniden has gotten very, very good at hiding small parts like this in their packaging. So when you buy a scanner, in a box, and there's all these little cardboard folded pieces and stuff like that. They don't waste a square millimeter of space in those boxes, and they hide these things real well. I had a customer last week call me and was looking for his adapter. He couldn't find it. He swore up and down it wasn't in a box. I said, take the packing apart. It's in there. And I was getting ready to send him a new one thinking that they didn't have it, and he called me back an hour later and said, I found it. It was packed in there, like you said. So, yeah, they do a good job of hiding them. They're in the box, believe me.
And another thing, too, once you find it out of that box, it's very easy to misplace.
Yeah.
You put it down, and it's gone in seconds.
Yeah,
Now,
and these especially because they roll.
The problem is, this is such a unique adapter because of the lip that's by the antenna connection on the STS 100. You're not able to use other adapters as easily.
Yeah.
So this is one of the adapters. Scanner Master does carry a generic one that works pretty decent. But, that weighted connection that we showed in an earlier slide, no go. Not going to work.
We actually sell these two as well separately. If you lose this one and you like this one versus the generic one. The nice thing about this one over the generic one is that it's all one piece on the outside, so you can turn it on and it's easier to get on, especially if you got big fingers like I do. It's very hard to get your fingers on that little spinning part. This actually, you just kind of turn the whole adapter and it can go on and off a lot easier.
Yeah, so that's the thing with the STS. If you've got one of these, make sure you know where that is. I know probably a lot of you out there are scrambling saying, oh, where is that adapter?
Oh, that's what that is.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's we get that a lot from the people that call us and say, what's that metal thing that came in the box with the scanner? So is it a round thing with the two little metal nubs on it? I said, yeah. And then I have to explain to them what it's all about. But yeah.
Yeah, so definitely now it's got me thinking because I've been
Where's yours?
I've been using, for the most part, with my STS, I've been using the stock antenna. And I haven't had too much issue whatsoever with the stock antenna.
It's 6:30 p.m. Do you know where your STS 100 is?
I know where it is. It's right over there.
Yeah, this time. If you're a long-time watcher, you'll understand what we were just talking about.
Yeah, it's waiting upon a clip for the bottom. So should be here any day now. The mail service is very sluggish.
Yeah, if you've got packages on the way to or from you going through U.S. Postal Service, they have been starting to work through some of their backlog. So things are starting to move through the system. So be patient. Hopefully it'll be there.
Yes. Well, my package went north, and now it's working its way south rather than going in the southerly direction.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing that you told me off air, that you got a package and it went up to Nashua, New Hampshire. It came out of Illinois, went to Nashua, New Hampshire, and then made its way to you in Arizona.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of that. Our office is in Boston, where we ship out of is in suburban Boston, and most of our postal packages go to the regional sorting facility in Nashua, which is 40 miles away from Boston.
Yeah, it's about 40,
something like that. Yeah,
40 miles away. Yeah,
and so they go there, and then from there they go someplace else. So we had a package going to Vermont, which is the next state over from New Hampshire. I mean, it's right there. It's probably 75 miles away from the office. The package went to Nashua, then it went to Rockford, Illinois. It made it to someplace out on the West Coast, Oakland or Bay Area, someplace like that. Went down to Louisville, Kentucky for some reason, and then made it back to Nashua, going to Vermont.
I don't know. I guess we better get off our soapbox with the post office.
Yeah.
It's been a little screwy lately, that's for sure.
Yeah.
This is another thing that Rich mentioned while we were putting together the slideshow. Mm-hmm. And this comes in handy for those of you that have a favorite SMA antenna, but it's not STS friendly.
Right.
So this allows you to put an adapter which goes from male to female. So it kind of brings up the connector outside of that little lip that's on there.
Yeah, I call this the antenna extension. And it just screws right onto the SDS. It actually fits onto the SDS and allows you to use your SMA antenna because it brings it up above that waterproofing lip. And some people, I've actually seen people who have trimmed that plastic lip around the antenna connector on the SDS 100. But if you don't want to start taking an X-Acto knife to your $650 radio, this might be a little bit better solution. Might not be quite as aesthetically pleasing, but it's less damaging to the radio.
Yeah, I mean, sure, if you're really good with an X-Acto knife, you know, you could probably do a pretty decent job, but I don't think I'm going to want to take a X-Acto knife to my radio.
No.
That's for sure. But yeah, the other thing to keep in mind is when you're using something like this, you know, the likelihood of damaging the connector is a possibility.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I mean, this is a small little adapter on top of that, you know, that connector. So you want to be cautious with using any types of adapters with your SDS. For the most part, that SMA to Bnc adapter is pretty snug, wouldn't you say, Rich, compared to some of these generic ones?
Yeah. It works very well, and it was made specifically for that radio, so it's going to work pretty good too.
And while we're on this topic, Remtronics, that antenna that everybody loves, with the special SMA connector, they have one that fits the radio for that 800 megahertz antenna. So we do have that available through Scanner Master. It's a special antenna, 800 megahertz, but it has the connector that's meant for the SDS. So there's no putting connectors dealing with any of that.
Yeah, and of course, everybody loves the Remtronics antennas. I've yet to meet somebody who didn't appreciate how well the Remtronics antennas work.
Let's continue on here with our slideshow. This is another nifty thing that that a lot of us were using. Speaking of those Remtronic antennas, prior to the new 90-degree angle Remtronics antenna for back of set, a lot of you have been using one of these adapters to be able to put one of those Remtronic antennas in the back of a 996 or a 536, and you would use one of these 45-degree angles or 90-degree angles. Why do I keep saying 45? 90-degree angles. I'm thinking of picture frames with a 45-degree versus a 90. You know, where you make the cut in a miter box?
Yeah.
Have you ever used a miter box, Rich?
Yes, I actually do have a miter box. So you make two 45-degree angles to make your 90.
Yes. Exactly. But yeah, this is definitely was key. And this may be something that you'll still use. It's basically a Bnc male to a Bnc female, creating that 90-degree angle so you can put your rubber duck antenna in the back of the unit or any of your favorite antennas that are not able to bend.
Yeah. Yeah, if the antenna itself doesn't have an elbow in it, you can use this. And it's also good, as Joe mentioned earlier, they're also good for strain relief. If you've got an antenna cable that doesn't actually go right to where you want it to go properly. I've seen a lot of people use these if they have a very stiff cable like LMR 400 going to a handheld scanner or even a desktop scanner sitting on a desk, and they'll use this antenna, this adapter, to have the cable going out a specific direction to avoid the cable forcing the radio to a different position on the table.
And the same thing with a mobile setup as well. Let's say you don't have a lot of, let's say you have your radio like the way my mobile setup is, and there's not a lot of space in between the floor and the back of the radio. You could use one of these, connect it up, and then the cable's coming in at an angle versus trying to turn it and put it on the bottom, you know, at the back of the radio, so it's doing this, you know, kink of a turn in the cable. You don't want to kink the cable either.
Right. Yeah, and that is a good thing if you have a low clearance, small clearance, or again, like say you've got something like I've got here where I've got a radio on a rack. I don't want that cable sticking up.
You want it to go off to the side.
You want to go out to the side or to the back. Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look at our next slide here. So here's some antenna coax basics. Rich, I'll let you take the first one.
Sure. So the gender of a connector is based on the center conductor. So that's a male connector has got a pin and a female connector has a socket. So if you know your basic human biology, you'll understand how that works. So the female end receives the male end, and it is that's how you base the gender of a connector. So a lot of people think because the entire connector goes into something that's a male. So like an SMA, they think the SMA with the threaded part is a male because it goes into the neural part. No, it's all based on that center pin.
It's the birds and bees conversation pretty much.
Right. But again, it's not based on the exterior of the adapter of the connector. It's based on the center pin.
The center pin, yes. Birds and bees. I don't want to get graphic with it, but
right.
But yeah, essentially that center pin goes into the female connector, which is
and that's exactly how it goes. So the male goes into the female, and if you don't understand that, talk to your parents. They'll be glad to explain it to you.
And I will leave that alone. All right. So
thanks for giving me that one. Yes.
Adapters can be used to convert one type of connector to another, which we've already went over, or provide an angle to protect the radio's connector from breakage, as we just went over with the 90-degree angle connectors. And then we also went over in the previous slides with the various interchanges, from BNC to SMA, from BNC to N, SMA to N, and so forth.
Yep.
Rich, the next one for you.
So the SMA connectors are used on some radios because they're very efficient, they're very good at what they do, and they're very small. So it does save room on the top of the radio, or in this case on the home control on the side of the radio. And it's a particularly good antenna. It maintains its impedance very well.
Very good. And the other thing I feel with the SMA connections is the threaded connection. It's more of definitely a solid connection. I notice with BNC antennas, especially if you have them in a portable setting and you wear the radio all the time, typically that antenna will start to rock a little bit on that connection.
Yeah. SMAs are a little bit more, less prone to that than a BNC. BNCs are real easy to take on and take off, but they can loosen up over the years. And sometimes it's just a matter of replacing the antenna versus the connector. But I have actually had BNCs. Yeah, I've been watching the comments too. I've actually had BNCs where the nub has come off of the BNC connector. So
that kind of.
Yes. That kind of explains it right there.
Yes. Consult your Playboy. Oops, I hit that by accident. There we go. I will leave it at that. All right. So I didn't know this, Rich. So this was one that you wrote up about the PL259 SO239 adapters were developed decades ago for the military prior to World War II. So these connectors have been around for a number of years, and those numbers are military reference numbers.
Yeah, so the 259 and the 239 were only the military could come up with different numbers for the same connector, just the male end versus the female end. But those were actually called UHF connectors back in the day, and that was when they considered UHF anything above like 30 megahertz was wasteland, radio wasteland. It was unusable. What the hams can have all that stuff. Nobody can use that. And that was called ultra high frequency because it was way up there that nobody used it. And nowadays we all know that UHF is everything above 300 megahertz. But back then it was everything above 30 megahertz. And these connectors were actually very good on HF frequencies below 30 megahertz, and they fit directly on the cables that were available during the day. And the male end of the adapter of the connector was about the same size of the banana connectors at the time. Those little, just kind of little push-in things. Mm-hmm. So you could push a banana plug into a what we now call an SO239, or back then a UHF connector. You just push the banana plug into there, and it worked great. Yeah. And only the military can come up with numbers like that don't mean absolutely anything.
There you go. Some history there.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the PL means plug and the SO means socket, but I don't know how they came up with something so descriptive like that. And then the 239 and the 259 have no other meaning other than that was the number assigned by the military back then.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we have some tips on coax connectors. So we're trying to include a lot of these tips for various topics that we use. So you're going to start to see this slide a little bit more often, where we have the light bulb. And we're going to give you some tips to pass along to you. So the first one is try to avoid or reduce antenna adapters when possible, as they do induce loss. Yeah, so anytime that you have, you want to get straight to the point with connectors. You want to, if you've got to use one, I've seen people, and this is way back in the day at Radio Shack, they would buy 5 different connectors to get down to what they need to.
Yeah, I've done that before, where I've taken 3 or 4 adapters to try to find a way to to make the adapter as long as possible. So here I've got all these little adapters going in together, and you end up with this big string about this long. And of course, by the time you get to the other end, the signal's totally gone.
Yeah. So whenever possible, we recommend. If you're putting up an antenna, look at what coax cables available from Scanner Master. We do have LMR 400 with custom connectors on each end. So if you need an N connector on one end and a BNC on the other, or if you need a UHF or PL 259 or whatever it may be on the other end, and the BNC connector on the other side, order the correct coax cable. You're gonna be happy you did, versus putting in a connector on one end, a connector on another end. Every time you put a connector, guess what? You're losing signal.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually went out for my patch panel. I actually went out and had some custom cables made with the proper ends. So it cost me a little bit of money, but it was worth it, because I was able to eliminate several adapters.
Yeah, and that's definitely a key thing. Rich, tell us a little bit about the next bullet point.
All right, so if you're going to be mounting your antennas outside, make sure that your connectors and adapters, if you're using them, are properly weatherproofed. Protect them as you can. So antenna connectors are not really designed to be waterproof. The end connector is usually more water resistant than other connectors, but still, even with an end connector, make sure that you use the proper material to wrap the connector. There's there's weatherproofing tape that you can buy that you wrap around the connector, and that keeps water from intruding in on there, because water and coax connectors are a bad thing. They can rust. Water can get in there and it can change the impedance. It's just not a good thing. And properly tape the connectors so that you keep water from getting in there, and that will make your connection last a lot longer. And of course, always, whenever you're going to have outside antennas, always make sure you properly ground them for lightning protection.
Yes, you want to be safe. And then whenever putting an antenna on the outside of your home, make sure you're not doing it alone.
Yeah.
Especially when you're climbing up on ladders and so on. In case you fall, you want somebody there to be able to call for help.
That's right. Yeah. Somebody's got to remove the body. So.
Yeah, it's not a good thing whatsoever. And Dale mentions the tape here. Yeah. The Scotch 33 plus tape. So definitely have this on hand whenever you're doing an antenna project.
Yeah, and one other thing too is when you have the coax going up to your antenna, make sure you add about a foot so that you put a little loop in your coax just shy of the antenna. And what that'll do is it'll help keep water from riding down the outside of the coax down into wherever it's going. If you put that little loop in there, more of that water is going to drip off versus riding down the coax.
Very good. Bnc adapters or connectors are quick, easy, and off for swap out, especially for portable radios. So if you're out and about trying different antennas to see which one's the best one for the job, that Bnc connector is going to be the easiest and quickest to use.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, we can do it without even looking at the radio. I mean, you just feel for it, put it right on, and you're good to go.
Yeah, they're really easy to put on, but there are some limitations. Remember, every time you take a connector off and take it on, you're going to wear down that metal a little bit. You want to be careful. Make sure on any connector that you're putting it on there straight. And that's even more important with N or UHF or SMAs when they're threaded. You don't want to cross-thread it. You want to make sure that it's put in there nice and straight and then turn down there. And if it stops, don't try to force it, because that means you're probably a little cockeyed, and you want to make sure that it's straight and not canted. If it's canted, you're going to get cross-threaded and you're going to ruin the connector. The other thing to remember, especially on end connectors, is they are kind of complicated on the interior. There's a center pin, there is an inner rim, and then the outer rim. And make sure that they are properly seated and straight before you start turning. And if you encounter any resistance, back off and try it again. They have to go in nice and straight. Otherwise, you're going to damage the interior. Other things that I have personally done is a SO239 and an end connector. They do not go together, and you will damage one or both.
Yeah, you can damage. You can damage the housing as well with that pin.
Yeah.
Depending on how the pin's set up on the female end of things, I can tell you firsthand from the ferret base antenna. If you go and try to put in the PL259 or UHF in there, you'll break the little pins that hold the small end connector pin.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure whenever you're doing any of this, you double check connections. If you're unsure, give Scanner Master a call. We're going to be familiar with a lot of the antennas out there. If not, next best thing, we all have smartphones. Take a picture of the connectors that you're dealing with. Email it over to support@scannermaster.com, and then we'll be able to say, okay, this is exactly what you need. So when in doubt, get a second opinion.
Yeah, I've done that a million times. I've had people, do you have a smartphone? Yeah, great. Take a picture of it, send it to this email address, and I'll be able to tell you what type of connector it is, and we'll get you the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best thing, because you're spending hundreds of dollars on an antenna, for example. You want to make sure that you're using the right connector.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can avoid using an adapter, I know we're talking all about adapters tonight, but the biggest thing is if you can avoid using them, don't use them.
Yeah. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We've been talking about a little bit of coax cable adapters. We see there's a ton of questions regarding antennas and so forth. We're going to get to those in the second half of the broadcast. So stay right here with us. We're going to go through a lot of those questions regarding coax cables and antennas and so on. We don't have too much longer for our slideshow presentation. We're going to wrap this up relatively quickly, and then we'll jump into answering some of your questions. So with connectors, we of course have programming cables, and a lot of those have their own connectors. So let's kind of dive into this. For the most part, the scanner industry has gotten a little bit easier with these connectors because some of these connectors are now crossing brands using the same coax cable, whether it be a Whistler radio or a Uniden radio, which is a blessing on our half because, we're not having to dig for one cable or the other. If it's one cable, we're good to go. Now, the two major components that we're seeing cable-wise is the mini USB to USB, as you can see over there on the left of your screen. Now, the other one that Uniden is kind of thrown at us with the SDS200 is the micro USB to USB.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of a thing that Uniden threw at us.
Yeah, and then they really mess with people's minds with the two different, or on the SDS200, the three different USB connections on the radio. I mean, there's USB connectors all over the SDS200, but only one of them can be used for programming. So we get that question all the time.
Yeah, so what you're going to want to use is the mini USB, which is the jack that's just below your volume and squelch, and of course below the networking connection on the front of the radio. You've got a lot of connections on the front of the radio. This is probably the one that's got the most. Is you got the I'm looking at it right now. USB-A. We've got the SD card slot. We have the micro USB. We have the networking connection. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there.
And then there's another micro USB port on the back of the radio that's not used for anything.
Yeah, still to be determined.
Yeah. So, and then on the SDS100, you've got a micro USB port on the top, and then the standard USB mini on the bottom. And the bottom one is used for programming, charging, and powering the radio. The the micro connector, we're going to be doing this all night long. The micro connector on the top of the SDS200, on top of those two, can be used to power the radio only at this point. So, it gets very confusing.
Yeah, and I think Uniden, I'm not too sure if we'll ever have the mystery of some of these other connectors solved. Yeah. As far as I know, with the USB-A connector on your 200, you can charge your cell phone.
Or your SDS100.
Or you can plug in your Home Patrol and have it powered, your Home Patrol 2 being powered by your SDS 200. Yeah. But
and then it gets goofy. There's the USB-A connector on the back of the 536, which is used for the GPS, the Wi-Fi adapter. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it gets. The other question, in fact, we had two different people ask the same question today. Is they lost their cable that came with their Uniden scanner, and they said, or the other one asked, is can I use a standard USB cable because the USB cable I have doesn't have this little thing on it, which the cable that came from Uniden does. And I said, yeah, any USB mini cable will work with those scanners. That box is just a little noise filter. So this one might provide less noise going into the scanner. But I've used standard USB cables for my scanners for years, though, since they've supported it. I've never had a problem with it. So, yeah, the Uniden scanner is going to have that little box on it. But if you've got a cable that doesn't have it, it's still going to work.
Yeah, a whole lot of things here. So hopefully you guys were able to... so for the most part, the adapter that's on the left side of the screen, the cable, is going to be used for a lot of the popular radios right now. And then the micro, which is on the right side of the screen, think of SDS200 for that for now.
Right. Yeah, as far as I know, that's the only scanner that uses that connector at this point.
All right, so now we've shared a lot with that. Now we're going to dive into this. Now, way back when, we used to program a lot of the radios with Db9 serial cables. Yep. And that was something that used to be on computers. Yep. Now, if you go look for that connector, you're not going to find it on any of the new computers.
All right. Trivia time, Jonathan. The connector that's shown, is that male or female?
That should be male. The pins.
All right, Jonathan wins.
Yeah. And I didn't have a Playboy in junior high. So, yeah, those are the pins are there. There's a lot of pins there, and it's going to go into a female that's got a lot of openings for that.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Moving on. So Uniden has this mini 4-pin, which was used for many years. Was used still on the BCT 15 X, and then of course it was used on the T, the 15T, the 996 T, XT, and then finally P2. They changed the connection on the front. The old one of my favorite portable radios, the 246. You remember that one, the 246T? Use that connector as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's also used on the Home Patrol for the GPS.
Yes, that's right. So this still, you may have one of those. You may know that from the USB 1 cable, which is right there, which is Rich is holding up, and that's very popular with the USB 1 cable.
Yeah. USB 1, and this is another question that comes up all the time. There are two versions of the USB 1. There's this one and this one. They both look exactly the same. There is no way to tell them apart visually from the outside. So the old USB 1 cable will work fine on Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 95. It won't work on any 64-bit operating systems. So if you're on Windows 8 or Windows 10, it will no longer work without some fancy work ahead of it. It's going to be a lot easier to replace it. If you get a newer version of the USB 1 cable that we sell now, it will work with all versions of Windows, including Windows 10, Windows 8, 7, XP, 95, 98, and all that stuff. Again, I don't know why they did this, but they made no visual cue as to which cable version it is. The only way to find out is to plug it in, see if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't, replace it. There's a little utility program that would tell you the version, but you can tell if it works, it's the D version. If it doesn't work, it's the A version.
And don't forget, with those cables you need to have if you're running an older computer and you've basically reformatted the computer. Let's say you have an old XT computer kicking around. Make sure you install the driver for the cable. A lot of the newer operating systems like Windows 10 will determine the driver and install that for you. But a lot of XP, like some people have XPs kicking around because they either went to a Apple-based computer, so they don't want to invest into a new Windows machine. And of course, if you've got an old XP computer that works really well, and you're just using it for programming, who cares about it's no longer supported.
Yeah. And then if you get a BCT 15, since that's really an old version, old scanner, they still make them, but it's an old scanner, and it still comes with the Db9 cable. It plugs into the front. So you can use that USB 1 cable, and that'll work fine, or you can go to Best Buy or Walmart and get a USB to serial adapter, and those will also work.
You just got to be careful with some of those adapters that won't read through sometimes to communicate with the software. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I know when I was early days in Scanner Master, it started to move away from serial connections on the computers. Mm-hmm. So people were starting to buy those adapters, USB to serial, and try to and then a lot of times people would have questions about it, said it doesn't read it. Then I would contact Butel, and they said with some of those adapters it's just there's a communication gap in between the two.
You're always going to have some issues with those. So usually it's driver based, but if you can get a COM port number, you should be able to make it work with Butel and other software. So
now the other thing, which you've heard, Rich was with his Velcro over there, is something that both Rich and I both use for programming cables. There's two options. You can use a label maker, and you can flag those cables so you know which scanners it goes to. Mm-hmm. The other thing, too, you want to keep in mind is Velcro Strap fasteners to keep the cables contained. And Rich,
Yep.
let me put you up on the big screen here, and you can show what that all looks like.
All right, so this is what these, we talked about these last week, and these are really great. I love these things. They're little Velcro straps with hook on one side, loop on the other, and they have a little loop that you put the end of it through, so that way when you take the cable out, the strap is retained on the cable, and it stays there. And then you just take your cable and you coil it up nice and neat, and you take your little strap and you just wrap it around on itself, and it holds it nice and neat. And now you got your cable, and it's kept around, and it stays nice and neat. They're cheap. You get these for like $5 for a package of 50 of them at Home Depot,
Yes.
or Best Buy, or wherever you get these things at. I buy them at Home Depot. And like I said, I think I bought about 10 packs of these things over the years.
Yeah, I usually have some of those, and I use it for all types of things, not only scanner related things, but like power adapters for various electronic devices. I mean, it just keeps your cable tidied up. The other thing too, for your shack, if you want to tidy up, the cable on a coax cable and tighten that up a little bit, you can use that as well. So that's certainly
one other thing that I found, which I really like too, is this stuff. It's very similar, but it's Velcro strap. It's hook on one side and loop on the other, and it comes on big rolls. So I think I bought it on at Home Depot. It's like 25 feet of this stuff, and you just snip it with the scissors to the length that you want, and it holds on itself, and it's a nice secure thing. It doesn't hold on the cable like these straps do, but they're great for wrapping wires on your desk and stuff to keep things nice and neat.
Perfect. All right, so we'll continue on, and we're at the halfway point now where we're going to be getting to your questions momentarily. If you're just joining us late in the broadcast, and if you haven't hit the subscribe button, make sure you do that right now. Subscribe to the Scanner Guys right here on YouTube, and we'll have your questions coming up very soon, so stay right here. We're going to continue on a little bit more with the slideshow, so let's remind you, our friends over at the Scanner School are doing a 3-part series right now where they are basically walking you through, if you've been away from the hobby for several years or a year or so, or took a break from scanners, or you just want a nice refresher. In this episode, join Phil in a 3-part series about scanning in 2021. This first class that just dropped yesterday is the basics. You can download it now, check it out anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Part 2, which will be available next Tuesday, is all about trunking. And that'll be available anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Look up the Scanner School, and that'll be available on January 19th. And then the third part in this series is hardware. And that will be available the following week, January the 26th. So 3-part series, the basics, trunking, and hardware, all coming up on the Scanner School. If you don't have one of those apps that you do, that you listen to podcasts, just visit the Scanner School's website, scannerschool.com. It should be a great series, and make sure you tune into that. Also, he's going to have a webinar on Tuesday, January the 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be a live webinar. You can sign up for that as well. We'll post a link to it in the comments after this, during the answering questions session. I'll grab that link for you guys. If you want to sign up for the webinar, you can do that. This is great for the newbie or advanced user. Everything that you need to know to understand the scanner radio hobby for 2021 if you stepped away from it. He's going to go over all that in a webinar, so it'll be a fast-paced review of what you need to know about scanning in 2021. And our scanner tip of the week. Brought to you by East Coast Pagers, your emergency alerting specialist, is one of these organizers that Rich and I have shown earlier in the broadcast. Mine's kind of tucked away, but Rich showed he was using a tackle box. This here you can pick up at your Lowe's or Home Depot, is one of these for your tools or accessories. These are great as well. So put all your little parts such as antennas and connectors. This one here, which is available at Lowe's and Home Depot, the walls on there are removable. So you can make the spaces bigger or smaller, however way you like. So you could have a section in there that stores, a lot of your standard rubber duck antennas, maybe the telescoping antennas once they're collapsed down, and of course, your adapters, or even those things as well, where for mounting the scanner. I can't think of the little nut things on the side.
Yeah,
you can store those knobs in there as well. And these you can pick up at Home Depot, Lowe's, places like that. I can't think of the name of. There's a tool store that we have around here.
Harbor Freight.
Harbor Freight, yeah, it's another place that you can pick up things like this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get those. They're I don't know, partition cases, I think is what they call them.
Yeah.
And with those removable dividers, like you said, I saw your other one one time, and it was great because you had a long slot in there for the antennas, and then the little slots in there for the adapters. It was just perfect for that. So that was great. Yeah, get a storage box for a storage box. I've actually seen those, Greg, where they've had a box, and then it has little containers that slide into them, and those little containers have it. I've got one out in the garage. I use it for fuses, and it's a box with a handle on it, and inside that box there's 5 or 6 of these little plastic compartment cases, and I put plastic fuses in one, all the different sizes, and glass fuses in the other, and and such like that. So it's a great way to keep your little things organized. So, and I apologize for the echo there. I had to go up and get another bottle of water, and so I had to unplug my headphones. So that's why you were getting echo there for a minute.
So I'm going to post that link to Phil's school right now in the comments. Definitely sign up. This is definitely going to be a good thing, and it doesn't conflict with the Scanner Guys show because it's going to be on a Tuesday night,
right.
Which is definitely a good thing. So definitely sign up. I just posted the link in the comments. It's basically the scannerschool.com /2021, and it'll bring you right to that page where you can sign up for his webinar. I believe it will be, there may be an interactive segment to it. But yeah, it'll be a slideshow like this. Phil's going to tell you everything that you should expect in 2021.
Yeah,
and our scanner tip of the week is brought to you by East Coast Pagers, your emergency alerting specialists.
Yeah, Ace Hardware, that's another one. Thank you, Chris. It's another good place for that kind of stuff.
So we just want to remind you that the Scanner Guys tip of the week is brought to you by East Coast Pagers, your emergency alert specialists. East Coast Pagers is the authorized unication dealer, proud to provide support to public safety professionals, businesses, and individuals. East Coast Pagers, dial them up at 877-231-PAGE or look them up online at eastcoastpagers.com. All right, and we just have one more segment, and then we're going to get to your questions. Getting to know your scanner connectors using the Uniden serial port. Now, at the time of this broadcast, we had stock of this item, and it actually went out of stock, but we should be getting some more in. And this is a really cool adapter for using that serial port that's in the rear of your radio. So let's say you've got a rack like Rich has, and you don't want to be running the cables to the front. You can connect up to any of these radios that have a serial port like a 996 or a 15, and you can program them through the port. You can also use your virtual control through that port as well. All the radios are listed right there on the slide. Rich, tell us a little bit more about the cable.
Okay, so this is basically a USB to serial adapter built into a cable with a null modem adapter already built into it. Because the port that's on the back of the 15X and the 996 series scanners was actually intended for the GPS. So it really wasn't intended for programming, but it happens to work for it. But in order to make it work for programming, you have to use a null modem adapter, which basically swaps the transmit and receive signals. So it allows you to do that. And so you could use a USB 1 cable, snap off the little end, and then and then put a Db9 on there, or you can just buy this thing. It's already built in. We sell them on our site. Unfortunately, we had a run on them today, I guess, because they were in stock when we built the slideshow earlier today. And it's basically a Db9 with a USB to serial adapter built into it. We've got a couple activity lights on it, and of course, then it goes to a USB port. So you plug it in the back of your 996 or your 15 series scanner, and it'll work. It'll give you a COM port identifier, and it works great. And I've got 16 of these in the back of my cabinet, and they work great.
Yeah, so definitely, if they're still out of stock when you go to our website, definitely look at the page, and you'll see there. Email me back when it's back in stock. Put your email address in there. As soon as they come back in stock, place an order for one of those. And it's certainly, if you don't have as many radios as Rich, but you like to connect up your radio and use that rear port, it's handy to have one or two of these hanging around. That's for sure. Yeah. Or we've had some customers that have a flaky connection on the front end of the radio where it's not working properly. This is a solution on the 15s or the 996s to be able to still program your radio.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a much more sturdy connection than that little goofy part on the front of the radio. And again, it works very, very well. And that's what I originally had done this with, was because I had a radio that had a bad serial port on the front of the radio, and I was researching a way to make it work, and this worked like a champ. And then, and so I bought a bunch of these things, and boy, they work great.
So there we go. There's another cable to take a look at there. Let's continue on. So we just want to remind you real quick that we're always looking for your scanner tricks or your shack photos. I did get a couple of emails today in this mailbox, so I have to take a look at those. Certainly send us your photos, your hints, your tricks. Email them to the scannerguys@gmail.com. Email them to the scannerguys@gmail.com. If you have technical scanner questions, do not email that address because it's not always monitored 24/7. We're going to give you that address right here. So if you want technical questions, email Scannermaster, support@scannermaster.com. Give them a call at 1-800-722-6637. They're open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can always shop Scannermaster 24/7 at scannermaster.com. That's scannermaster.com for all your shopping needs. We're open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for that 1-800 number. Also, let's take a look here. Our next broadcast is Wednesday, January the 20th of 2021. You pick the topic. So what we're going to do is we're going to put up a poll on our social media and on our website. We're going to have that up relatively soon. I'm guessing if I can get to it tomorrow morning, I'll get that out on all of our social media. You'll be able to vote for the topic of discussion next week. We're going to turn that over to you, and you guys decide, and then we will talk about it. And that next show will be Wednesday, January the 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. And as always, we want to remind you that the Scanner Guys are brought to you by Scanner Master. Train Aficionado Live with Rich and myself. We'll be back on Monday, February the 1st of 2021. We will be deciding on a topic, I think, hopefully this week. And make sure you hit the subscribe button while you're on YouTube. Subscribe to the Scanner Guys, and then hop over to Train Aficionado and subscribe to that channel as well, so you can get notifications anytime that we post a new video. And make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our friends over at Train Aficionado, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And check out the blog. I've just recently posted a new blog entry about the Steaming Tender restaurant in Palmer, Massachusetts. So if you're up in the Northeast looking for a great place to have dinner, definitely check out the latest blog entry. Basically, long and short of it, COVID-19 has basically put a dent into their business, and they've been struggling like many of these smaller restaurants that are not chains. So you can read a little bit more about the Steaming Tender restaurant and how it certainly has a huge appeal for rail fans. And make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to Scanner Master on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Scanner Master Co. and the Scanner Guys across social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. So that is that. So let's kind of dive into your questions. We had a lot of questions this evening. Rich, where should we start? Just give me the time, and we'll post the
question. So a lot of initial check-ins from a lot of our regulars and some occasional new people here. At 6:03 or 3 after, Joe mentioned that they are planning a contest on Hamvention weekend. So there will be so for all your hams out there, there will be contests for the weekend that Hamvention would have occurred. So if you're a contester, or even if you're not, and you just want to get involved with it, or even just listen to it, go to their website, and they'll have the frequencies and stuff for that contest. And they are going to have some on-the-air events. And if you're in the Central Ohio area, and you might even be able to pick up some stuff on 2 meters and 440. So there's that. Let's see here. Yeah, my lighting. Jonathan is. We're working on getting Jonathan out here to fix my lighting. I do have a tanning bed here, but unfortunately, it's too small for me. So, but like I say, once it warms up a little bit, I'll be spending a lot more time outside, and that'll help. Casper, yeah. Oh, yes, I have rearranged my office again. So I'm going to be doing a new video probably this weekend. So I will post that up. Basically, a lot of this equipment is the same. I just rearranged things, and I like this arrangement best so far. So if you know me, you know I like to change things. Jonathan's office doesn't change nearly as often, but mine does.
No, I mean, well, this is the best office setup that I have. I mean, all my scanners are in front of me. The camera angle has changed, so there's a little bit more stuff going on behind me. So as you can tell, my great love, oops, I almost pulled my antenna connection out. Not my antenna, my headphone connection, but yeah, my train stuff in the back of me, which is a thing that I totally love. So
well, very importantly for me, I'm going to move my camera a little bit here. I have my drink cooler in the office now, so I don't have to get up and go in the other room to get water or soda pop or anything.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's what when you heard that echo before, I unplugged my headphones so I could get up and get another bottle of water. So,
you can just take the headphones off.
I know, but I wanted to make sure I could still hear you in case you needed to, because that would be the exact minute when you said, "And Rich, how about this?" And I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute."
I could see you off, and you can't hear me if I'm unplugged.
I know. It just said you're more used to this stuff than I am. You are a professional enunciator. I'm not. So
well, yeah, I mean, and radio, like I would take my headphones off, when I was on radio, and I watch you, so I could see. I mean, there's times that, when I'm punching up the show, as long as we're not in this section, I can see Rich getting, about ready to get up, so I'll go to widescreen of the slide or whatever. But yeah, and that's some of the behind the scenes stuff, which we don't have to really get into. What other questions do we have out there?
Okay, so one of the things I posted a question on Radio Reference the other day. I'm looking for what we call a 2U rack solution for the SDS 200. And what I want to do is I want to copy a box that you made in your office. And I talked to you about this before. Jonathan made a box for his scanners, which is perfect for me. And I love it, and I'm going to copy it. So, but I want to use that same size, the 2U, for my SDS 200. And so I asked about that. I do have a possible solution for that I'm working on, and I'm waiting to hear back from that manufacturer. So that will be part of the picture. I will post pictures if and when that comes to pass. Art asks about the warranties on new scanner purchases. So you want to explain that?
Uniden and Whistler basically have a year warranty on their radios. As long as you haven't opened up the radio and tried to do tinkering around there, if it's a legitimate thing, you're going to go through the warranty procedures through either Uniden or Whistler. Right. Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that won't be covered under the warranty. I would consult the manual and so on to see what's covered under the warranty. If in doubt, give Uniden or Whistler a call, and they'll be able to answer that question accordingly as well. But typically, it's a 1-year warranty. Some competitors out there do those extended warranties. A lot of times, it's a money maker. So they're basically making money off of it, because typically with most things like these things that we use, anything that's going to go bad on the radio is going to happen within probably the first 30 days. But they extend it out for the full year.
Yeah. So, if it's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong pretty quickly. And Uniden is pretty good about doing, if they find some problem that's endemic with the radio, like with the 436 and the 536, for 7 years, they would fix the memory battery and screen lighting issue. They did that for 7 years. So now after 7 years, that plan is over, but they took care of that for 7 years, and you got to give them credit for that. They stuck behind that, so that's good for them for that. So it doesn't look like I got room if I'm going to put that rack where my Spectrum Force rack is. Yeah, actually, I do have plenty of room. I got more room out here, so I've cleared this side of the desk. I got plenty of room for that rack that I'm thinking about building. I am going to work on my camera a little bit. So Kevin wants to know, should he use a mounted antenna, a mobile antenna, or an on-scanner antenna? So
depending on what you want to do there. I mean, it's kind of hard for Rich and I to kind of give you a recommendation with something like that, depending on, what's going on in your shack.
Yeah. The first question we ask when somebody wants to know what's the best antenna for me is where do you want to put it, or how are you going to mount it? And then we take it from there, because that's the most important question. Is I can sell you a disc cone antenna, but it's going to look awful funny mounted on top of your SDS 100.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. We need a little bit more who, what, when, where, and why. And that's a lot of times I will get these Facebook messages, asking, and I'll tell them, look, it's best if you you either give us a call. If you're not able to call, give us an email, and then what we can do is we can put together either through email. We can put together, some literature or whatever it may be to kind of get you in the right direction. Or if you give us a call, we can ask a lot more of those questions. Where are you going to put it? What are you looking to accomplish? So, I mean, sometimes talking to a live human being is the best thing, believe it or not.
Yeah, we'll be able to ask the right questions to find out what you need. But a very open-ended question like that is going to be very difficult to answer without a little bit more than that. So, we have another fan of the 125. We are big fans of the 125. We both use them all the time for rail fanning. And so let's see here. The SMA is a very good technical connector for a wide range of frequencies. We talked about them before, and Tom answered the question. It is a sub-miniature version A, and apparently there's also a sub-miniature version B. And there's another question that came up a little bit later on that I remembered reading, or a comment actually. There's what's called a reverse SMA. So if you've got a Woshin radio or a Motorola APX or HT1000 type radio, they have what's called a reverse SMA, and basically it's the radio has got the inner threads and the female connector, and the antenna has the outer threads and female. So yeah, and the G4 and G5s have that as well. That's commonly called a reverse SMA because it's reverse of the connector that's commonly seen on a scanner. So you can actually take a G5 antenna and a SDS 100 antenna and screw the two of them together and have two antennas. And that, I guess, is probably the closest thing you're going to have to a trans antenna. So,
I can demonstrate that right now. What's the next question? All
right. Well, you're working on that. So Ray is looking for the best cables. So we were talking earlier about the there you go. That's an SMA scanner antenna and a G5 antenna mated together. It works.
It works.
Of course, it's useful. It's very useful for absolutely nothing.
Well, you know what it is when we say that we're pointing at the screen, we can use this as our pointer.
There you go.
Then we don't have that pesky connection, rubbing on our hands because it's now been capped.
There you go. So we were talking earlier. I was using an Rg6 Quad Shield coax for some of my antennas. I actually bought the stuff that's intended for satellite dishes. So there's 4 layers of shielding, and it's a very high quality Rg6 75 ohm coax. Works great for scanner antennas. And with the Quad Shield, it's very low loss, and it works really well. It's built for satellite dishes, which is a very low level signal, very weak signal, system anyway. So they have to have really good coax in order to have a signal at the end of the coax. So that stuff works great. And you get that at Home Depot and Lowe's type places.
And you can buy that, at 100-foot length, and they have it with no connectors. And sometimes at the big box stores, such as Home Depot and Lowe's, they have the kit to be able to put on a Bnc connection.
Yeah.
So you're able to purchase everything all in one place for the most part. I've done that. I've done it on that type of coax cable, but I haven't done it on an LMR 400. I think that's a little bit more challenging.
I am very, very bad at putting connectors on cables, so I tend to buy my cables already built, or I'll even spend the extra money and get custom built cables when appropriate, just because I am so bad at putting connectors on. I don't know why. I couldn't put a connector on a cable to save my life. And I've been doing this for 50 years. So
yeah, when I was putting in at the house, I bought some cable and I was like, I'm going to try running, to the other rooms. So I had everything go into the hobby room, and then I used a multi-coupler to feed the living room and then feed the bedroom. And I basically cut the cable to length where it needed to be, and then I fabricated the connectors on, and I did a pretty decent job at it. I mean, the first time I was a little nervous, and then once you've done it a couple of times, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, and I've done it hundreds of times, and I just can't do it. I don't know what it is. Everybody has that one thing they can't do. I can't put on connectors, so I don't know. Maybe it's ingrained in my head that I can't do it, so I can't. All right. So Yeah, so if you're using if you're using TV gear like a distribution amp, we were talking earlier about using F connectors and Rg6 cable for scanners, and when you'd use an F to Bnc adapter. Tom mentioned, yeah, using a cable distribution amp. That stuff actually works pretty good for scanners. TV frequencies and scanner frequencies, they're both using a wide range of frequencies in the very similar ranges. So TV stuff often works very well for scanner stuff. The only difference is TV antennas are horizontal polarization, whereas scanner antennas are vertical. So, you're going to get, if you're going to use a TV antenna for a scanner, flip it up so it's like this. It'll work better. So end connectors are often used for land mobile and public safety stuff for a long time for base installations. Yeah, when we put up a new radio tower at the police station I worked at, all the antennas had end connectors, and we had 7/8 inch inch and 7/8 inch hardline. It was like this big around, and they had these great big huge Anderson end connectors that would go on there. I think the end connectors cost about $300 a piece. That would go onto this hard line. And this hard line, like I say, it's about as big around as a sewer pipe, as a drain pipe, and it's about as flexible too. So,
yeah, I mean, the original when we moved in Holliston, Rich had a heavier grade coax cable coming off the ferret down the tower and then into the building. And yeah, you're absolutely right. There's not much flex to that at all.
No. Yeah, that hardline, it actually came on a reel that was about 12 feet tall. And then the center part of the reel, it only went to about 5 feet because that was as much as that stuff could turn. So it was, I mean, that stuff, you got to have 5 or 6 guys just to force that stuff up, and move it around because it is so stiff. And even the LMR 400 is kind of difficult to work with because it just doesn't bend as easy as like Rg6 or Rg58 will.
Yeah, totally.
All righty. So fishing lure boxes work great. We were talking about that earlier. Labels, that's another good tip. And I took my USB 1 cables when I had both old ones and new ones, and I labeled them as old and new. And then when I sold the scanner, I gave the guy all my old cables because he had Windows XP. So I gave him all my old USB 1 cables, and I just kept my 2 USB 1 newer version cables. So yeah, I have one of those label makers, and they work great. So my Roku device has got a label on it, so I know which TV it's connected to, and yeah. So yeah, those label makers are great. I love them. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. So
yeah, I'll go ahead. I'm able to post the comment because we got to that point where
we're still on the list. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll grab this one. So we've done a whole show regarding reception.
Yeah.
Now you have a 536. You want to put up an outdoor antenna about 30 feet high. What is the range that it will pick up? Well, dependent on a lot of things.
84.2 miles.
What did you say?
84.2 miles.
Unfortunately, we can't figure that out for you. It's based on terrain. Now, if the world was completely flat,
yep,
we would probably be able to ballpark it a little bit better. But unfortunately, it's not flat. Terrain, we have valleys, we have hills, we have things that'll block. Take for instance, if you've got a large city and you're on the other side of the city and you're trying to pick up something that's across the city, you may not be able to pick it up just because of all the things that the signal has to go through. So, some signals are going to be stronger than others. And the other thing, so you've got your 30-foot tower, or not 30-foot tower, but you've got your antenna up high about 30 feet. Mm-hmm. Let's say the city or town that you're monitoring in is in a gully or a valley, you may not be able to pick them up so well if they don't have their antenna or tower high up as well. It may work for their liking because, the city or town is within a valley. So it's not really like a true science. We can't tell you, like Rich said, 84 point such and such miles. It's going to be dependent on your terrain. It's going to be dependent on who you're monitoring and where their tower or towers are at, and even what type of system they're using. Yeah. If they're digital, they could be using a simulcast system. And depending on where you are, that may work to your benefit or it may not work to your benefit. The other thing too is if it's analog, you might be on the fringe of the system, but still be able to hear communication.
Yeah.
With a digital system, if you're on the fringe of a digital system, it's going to hiccup and do what have you. With analog systems, you're able to pull those weaker signals a little bit more. With digital, it's either crystal clear, it hiccups, or nothing at all.
Yeah, it's gone. And a lot of it also depends, like NY Pixels mentioned, the power output of the transmitter that you're trying to listen to, your feed line, your antenna. There's so many things. So I tell people that the range you're going to get depends on too many things for us to guess. But that the higher the antenna, the higher you can put your antenna, and the better antenna you have is usually going to increase your range. Not always. There are times when a better antenna makes things worse, like when there's digital simulcast. Sometimes a better antenna makes things worse, but there's no way to give a definitive answer to that question. And we spent 5 minutes saying that. Oh.
Yeah, and the other thing that I can't stress enough, if it's not a simulcast issue and you're trying to get a signal from a great distance, don't go cheap on the coax cable. Yeah. Your antenna that you've placed 30 feet up is only as good as the coax cable leading up to it. So make sure you're not adding a whole bunch of adapters, to convert the connection, and make sure you're not going cheap on the coax cable, because the thing is, you're defeating the purpose. If you spend a whole bunch of money on an antenna and you go cheap on the coax cable, that's how you're going to be able to get those signals.
I would, if I had to choose between a really good antenna and cheap coax, or a really good coax and a cheap antenna, I would go with the good coax and the cheap antenna. A piece of metal up in the air is fine. The coax that get the signal from there to there is much more important, especially the further away from the antenna you go. The longer the coax, the better you're going to get, the more important it becomes. A 5-foot piece of coax, you can do it with a piece of wire, but, or a 5-foot distance from the antenna. But you talk about 100 feet, you got to have the good stuff.
Yeah, definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, hills play a role, where you're located, whether or not you're above your roof line, whether you're above your neighbor's roof line. You're going to notice, even just because of your area, if you put in a whole bunch of agencies, north, south, and east and west of you, you're going to realize that your antenna is going to play well to a particular direction. And that's just how it is in the grand scheme of things. It's just how it is. I noticed when I was living in Attleboro, my antenna setup played well to southeastern Massachusetts. I was in Attleboro, and it was more trickier trying to pick up things north of me. But for whatever reason, south of me, I could pick up, cities or towns that were really far away from me, south of me, really well. And I tried the same distance, but it was north of me, and it just didn't play well. It's just that RF environment, that whole, everything that we mentioned is going to play into it.
Yeah. I live 1.5 miles from the edge of the mountain range, and I'm on a high plateau, about 2,000 feet up, and the foothills to the mountains that are about 1.5 miles from me. And that blocks everything to the south and a little bit to the east of me. So I can't pick up anything south of me, but I can pick up stuff way off to the north because I'm high, and well, no, I'm not. I'm not high. I'm at a higher elevation, and I got a clear shot to the west and to the north. All right. So we were talking earlier about the SDS 100 and the battery door. Be very careful with the battery latch on your SDS 100s. They can break, and that is a weak point on that radio. So,
yes, I been pretty much not pleased with that, and I've been worried about it. And I thought about it the other day, and I was about ready to tell my wife, "Oh yeah, I don't like this," and then sure enough, I dropped it. And and the latch basically split in half. So I actually, that's the package that I'm waiting for. Should be coming hopefully relatively soon, and I'm going to be trying this out, and hopefully that'll do the trick with that. That was like, oh my God, why?
It happened to you. Why
Yeah, so
me?
just be careful. The other thing too is I'm a huge, I've dropped the radio before, but it was in a carrying case. So I had a layer of protection. I had the radio outside the carrying case and go to, Murphy's Law, I dropped it without the carrying case. Sure enough, I broke the connector. So I'm waiting on a new connector. It's easy to replace. Just basically unscrew a couple of screws, and then the thing comes out. There's a little pin. You slide that out, and then you put the new one in. I'm just waiting on the new one. So I know where my SDS is. It's on my table that's right over there. I'm looking right at it. So,
right. Waiting to get fixed.
I'm waiting to get fixed. I left it unscrewed. I figured I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to just put it back together, but leave it unscrewed. And then as soon as I get the thing in, I can just put it back together and it's done.
So that battery latch for the SDS 100 is normally or nominally available from Unit and Parts.
For $20.
They are often $20. They are often out of stock, and they are $20. Plus, they're probably charging you shipping as well. Mm-hmm. There is at least one guy I know of that makes them. He's got a little bit of a cottage industry. Makes them with a 3D printer. And
that's what I ordered. So I'm going to try that out and see how it is. Yeah. So his price was $10.
And that includes shipping too, doesn't it?
That includes shipping. As of right now, he said it was a special, but he's just extended it. So I ordered one of those, and he stated in the description, how I found this is our buddies over at Radio Reference. When in doubt, become a member of Radio Reference and do a search on the forums.
Yeah.
And somebody's bound to have asked the question or bound to have the issue, or, if not, you could be the first one to bring it up.
Yeah, and almost everything that has gone wrong with something has gone wrong for somebody else.
Yes.
And, so you can do that. And I've heard good things about it. I don't have one of his things, but I've talked to some other people who have, and I've heard some good things about it. So hopefully that will take care of your problem, and I'm sure we'll hear about the report once you get it.
Yeah, definitely. I will. What I can do is I'll take a photo of the two before I put it together side by side so you can see it. It's supposed to be a little bit more heavier grade. The other thing, too, I wish I had a 3D printer because they're absolutely amazing. To be able to build a part with a 3D printer, for a scanner, it's just great.
And there's a lot of people now that are sharing designs. I guess files, would be the way to put it for 3D printers. So even if you're not good at designing that stuff yourself, you can probably find the design for a lot of the stuff you want. If you do some searching. So that's there's a lot of people who have kind of made a little cottage industry, home industry using 3D printers to fill out these little niches. So, and this guy seems to do a pretty good job with it, and we'll see how it works, and we'll let everybody know.
Yeah, he's got a great first name too.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's too.
Yeah.
We'll continue on. So, what's our next question here, Rich?
All right, at 31 after, Jim DLT says if you search for electroline cable boosters, They are basically TV distribution amps. I don't have an Electroline, but I've heard a lot of good things about them. So we sell the Studsberg multi-couplers, so you can use one antenna with many radios. I've got Studsbergs there and here, and they work great. I love them, but they are expensive. Electroline also sells. They're basically meant for TVs, and they work very well. And there's isolation port between the ports, which is part of what a multi-coupler does. So that is a lower cost alternative to the Studsberg. But since they have F connectors, now you have to deal with that situation. So either custom cables or adapters.
Yeah, I mean, that's the. I mean, a lot of times, we have to do things on a budget. I mean, especially when. When now the top of the line radio goes for about $650 to $700 on the unit inside, you get creative, and this is definitely one of the ways to get creative when you have a multi-radio setup.
Absolutely. So Randy lets us know that part of the problem the post office is having is that the horses are getting, I guess they're getting tired, and they have to feed the horses for the delivering the mail. So and it takes time to get the horses across the mail. So I think the U.S. Postal Service needs to get out of the horse and buggy age and decide how to use motor vehicles and aircraft and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. Some people are still waiting for their packages mailed before Christmas, and that's been almost 3-4 weeks now. So
yeah, it's just I don't know what's going on over there at the.
They've had huge demand, not only with the pandemic, but now, of course, with Christmas. And with the pandemic, a lot of their personnel are off, either recovering or otherwise. So the personnel are down, the amount of shipping is up, and the post office just is not geared up to for that type of surge stuff. UPS seems to be handling things much better. I don't use FedEx much, so I don't know how they're doing, but UPS seems to be doing weathering things pretty well. Amazon has been doing pretty good too. So, but
yeah.
All right. So yeah, and in fairness, like Joe mentioned at 34, after a lot of people are shipping stuff rather than going out to see people and bringing stuff with. So it is. I understand what's going on. Obviously, everybody wants their stuff right now, and most of the stuff is getting through just fine. It's just a lot more problems than they've had in the past. So, all right. So, we talked about that. Yeah, and the reason, so when we have the male adapters and the female adapters, and that's how little radios are made. So, that's good. I like that, Craig. So Dale has got a BNC connector and a PL 90-degree connector in his company truck for the scanner and dual band because his radios are in the center console, and so he's got clearance issues. So he's got 90-degree angle adapters on those antennas so that you can connect those on there without the radio sticking up another couple inches off that. So
I've had a couple of setups where I had to do that. At the current setup, I think I showed last week, if that was the show, all these shows are starting to blend into each other. I made sure
it was on a Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely on a Wednesday. It had enough clearance, so I don't have to use that. But the 90-degree angle is ideal for that. Just being able to. You don't want to. I mean, the other thing too that's important with the coax cable is you don't want to bend it to the point where it's going to have an issue.
Yeah, it's easier to use an adapter, and it's going to be better in the long run to use an angle adapter than it is to put a kink in the cable.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Joe says he likes the BNCs because they're more quick to change, but the SMA are a better connector technically. So, yeah, I agree with you, Joe.
I certainly do, too.
Absolutely. So Jim uses an end connector from the Yagi into the Comet duplexer all the way into his rack, and then BNC for termination. So again, if you can use the proper connectors in the first place, you don't have to use the adapters. But if you absolutely positively got to use the adapters, use the adapters.
That's right.
And SMA connectors are not really designed to be changed out often. That center pin is a little bit more fragile on an SMA connector than a BNC. So if you're going to be switching it back and forth a lot, that's why the BNC is going to be better. If you're not going to switch it a lot, the SMA connector is better. All right, so Joe says that's why he's going to use the extended SMA connector that he plans to use a lot. So yeah, so basically what that SMA extension that we talked about earlier, the male to female one, people also call those port protectors, because if you're going to be taking things on and off, thread it onto that extender, and then that way when the extender goes bad, you just put in a new $5 extender versus sending in your $650 radio oven for repair. So we used to do that with serial ports. If you're going to take serial ports in and out, we put a male to female on the back of the serial port on the back of the computer. So if the connector gets damaged, you change that little adapter, that little male to female adapter, as a port protector instead of having to having a problem on the computer itself. So you can do that if the loss isn't going to cause you issues. All righty, so Coax Seal was the word I was searching for before. That's the tape that's used to protect and weatherproof an antenna connection out on the roof. That's the nice thing about putting antennas in the attic, is that they are more protected from the weather, so you typically don't have to waterproof them. If you have to waterproof an antenna in the attic, you've got bigger problems than your antenna.
That's for sure. You should be not worrying about antennas at this point, worrying about your roof.
Yeah. So, and Dale says Scotch 33 Plus tape is another name for that. So, yeah, Coax Seal weather tape, Scotch 33. Yeah, that's use those. And there's some sort of heat, some kinds of heat shrink, which is also weather resistant. Also, make sure that whatever you're using up there is UV resistant, ultraviolet resistant.
Yeah, especially
otherwise
in your neck
it'll
of the
break
woods.
down. Oh yeah, yeah. I had to buy UV protected zip ties, because I'll put a zip tie on something in my attic and I have to change that zip tie because it'll break within a month. In the summertime, because they just dry out so quick. So the UV ones tend to be more flexible in the first place, and they won't be heat damaged as much.
And I believe we mentioned this a lot during the springtime, is, before it gets too warm out there and when the weather's just a little bit better out there, it doesn't hurt to check, your antennas. If you have an outdoor antenna and you have the ability and you have a ladder to be able to just check everything, make sure coax cable's looking good. Take a look at the connector, make sure there's nothing compromised on there. If you've got one of those disc cone antennas, just check the elements just to make sure none of them gotten loose. I mean, especially if you're in a section of the country where they get hurricanes or snow and you've had some snow buildup, or you've had a hurricane roll through with some high winds, you want to make sure not only the antenna is secure, you want to make sure the mounting gear, if you're using a wall mount or whatever, a mounting gear, you want to check it periodically. You can catch an issue if you check, at least once or twice a year, versus you come home one day and your antenna is down the ground and broken.
Or you're missing elements. And
Yes.
So this is the time of year to do that if you live south. And if you live north, you're going to have to wait till springtime because you got to dig out from the snow. But this is the time of year where people like me in Phoenix work on our antennas, either in the attic or on the roof. So strain relief. So that's actually very important when you're going to coax. Don't run your coax right up to the antenna and make it as tight, thinking you're going to be able to save a foot or two. Keep it a little loose. Have that little loop on there. Not only is that loop good, it's called a drip loop. It will allow the water to drip off it, but it also allows for that cable to expand and contract a little bit, and to keep it from pulling out from contraction. So that also will help it. not really spring, but it keeps it from it helps reduces the strength. Make sure that it's tied down, but they don't want it tied down so tight that it's going to be there's no play. You want to have it just loose enough where you can move it just a little bit, and then have that drip loop in there, and you'll be good.
The same thing on the radio end of the business as well inside your home. Like for instance, you wanted to, you want to have a little bit of play when it enters your den or your office or wherever you're leading that coax cable in. You want to have it so tight that that if you move your multi-coupler or do whatever, or you can't reconfigure, have a little bit extra, that extra foot on both ends is not going to hurt things. I mean, if you've got wound of 10 feet of coax cable, yes, you can do something with that. You don't need 10 feet of wound coax cable on the inside of the home.
Yeah, if you got to coil it up, it's probably too much. But if you've got an extra foot or two, you're all right. Now, Jonathan, let me ask you this: do you use antenna wax?
I haven't put an antenna in years.
That's always been a great April Fool's joke for antenna people. Is they sell antenna wax? So you wax your antenna.
Kind of like, well, that's a real thing for surfboards.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Sex wax, I think, is what they call it for surfboards.
I was thinking that, but I wasn't going to say it.
Yeah, no, that's what they call it.
That's what they call it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the antenna wax is one of those is one of those things that they come up every couple of years on April Fool's Day. So, and then the other one was oh god, I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah, the guy had the cardboard antenna. He made a scanner. Well, it was actually a TV antenna. He made it out of a cardboard and said, "Yeah, this is the greatest antenna. It's made out of cardboard." So,
if it's got metal elements in the inside, it'll work.
Oh well, yeah. But if that's the case, that's great. But yeah, this guy was, like I say, it was just one of those April Fool's jokes. So Ron says, if you change antennas a lot, try not to have the radio side connector metal contacts separate in the connector. I'm not quite sure where he's going at there. I'm not sure, Ron. You might want to clarify that one. I'm not quite sure what where you're going on that. Again, It might have been in context with what we were talking about at the time. So Dave is going to be putting up his new D130 antenna outside. His cable run is 30 feet to his Stridsberg. Is Rg58 okay, or should he use LMR 400? Typically, under 50 feet, Rg58 is usually not a problem. But if you can use LMR 400 anyway, I would go with the LMR 400.
Same. I would definitely do the LMR 400. Although the LMR 400 that we sell is in 25, 50, 75, and 100 feet. So if it's if 25 is under what you need and 50 is too much, then maybe you do the Rg58. But if you feel that you could use the extra, the other thing that I can't stress enough anytime I'm on the phone with a customer is if you're just eyeballing this, a lot more times you need more coax cable because you're not accounting for, the various things.
Well, yeah, because your cable isn't going from point A to point B. It's going from point A to point C to point D to point F, and then it's going up to point B.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, when your GPS gives you it's 20 miles, from here to there. Those are air miles. Yeah. When it calculates the route, it's going to be a lot longer because you don't have a straight path to get there.
Yeah, Tom mentioned that you can use 25 feet of LMR 400 with a good quality jumper at the other end. If you can avoid an extra adapter in there, that might work a little better too. But yeah, if you can use LMR 400, do that and make sure you know actually how long you need. What I've done in the past, if I was going to be really careful about the length, I would take a piece of string and run it the exact route that I'm planning on running the cable, and then add a couple feet just to be safe.
And then you measure that.
Yeah, and then you measure that piece of string. And then that way, if you have custom coax cut, which I've done in the past as well, and I've measured that out, and I said, okay, I need 87 feet. All right, so I'm going to get 90 feet of LMR 400 with the end connector on one end and a BNC on the other end. That's going to be a great way, and that way you can tell exactly how long it's got to be, because it's got to go here, it's got to go up, it's got to go through the wall, it's got to go into the attic, it's got to go over here. It's not going to go in a straight line.
And you see exactly what Rich did. Is it was 80 some odd feet. He tacked on a little extra just in case.
Yep.
Just in case.
Yeah, like a good carpenter will tell you, is you measure twice and cut once. That's right. Okay. I had to think about that. I'm not a carpenter either, so. Although I almost did con my wife and let me buy a table saw the other day. But I figured I'd use it about once a year. Les says when he... Yes,
do you have a circular saw?
I do.
Okay. When we're off, I'll tell you a little trick.
Okay. So Les said when he lived in his house, he coated his outdoor antenna with Vaseline. I suppose that would be a good way to waterproof the elements and keep that. And I suppose that would keep the snow and ice from building up on it. You'd probably have to replace that Vaseline once or twice a year to keep it properly slimed. But I've never thought about doing that before, but I suppose that might work. Joe mentioned the next comment up is be careful of cheap connectors. He's seen SMAs and BNCs that have larger than spec center pins. So that could be very important. And the other thing you remember, too, is there's another connector that looks very similar to an F connector. And it's called a mini UHF. And it's, like I said, it's almost indistinguishable from an N connector or from an F connector. The specs are almost exactly the same. It just seems to be a little off. And usually the way you can tell a mini UHF connector is when you look inside at the pin, if there are two little nubs on the flat part that keep it from spinning, that's probably a mini UHF connector. If there's none of that in there, it's probably an F connector. So be very careful because they are very difficult to tell apart visually. And the mini UHF pin is a little bit larger, and it will deform the receiver part on the F connector. So make sure you use good connectors and make sure you have the right connectors. All right, so we handled that. Ron has had the same connect setup that Dave had for about 25 years. He used that Rg6 Quad Shield. It's much easier to work with than LMR 400, and it's less expensive. So it gives about the same loss if you get the good quality Rg6 Quad Shield stuff. About the same loss characteristics as LMR 400. It's cheaper and it's easier to use. So, I mean, I love LMR 400 cable, but sometimes it's just not practical.
Yeah.
And yes, Kevin, Bnc connectors can wear out after several disconnections. As Joe mentioned earlier, they can get worn, and the little nubs will get worn, and that will make those connectors loosen up after a while. So either use a port protector, which an adapter would help you to protect it if you're going to be using things in and out, but or just try not to unplug stuff as often as, too often as, any more often than necessary. Let's see here. Yeah. We just answered that question. Apparently it's very windy in Rapid City. The winds are rapid in Rapid City tonight.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Lots of Edgemont, South Dakota. Apparently South Dakota is very windy this time of year. So we had that last week too. Didn't somebody mention they were out?
Yeah, they're out there.
So we're talking about micro and mini cables. They are. half the time when I'm talking to people on the phone, I say it's a mini cable. It's a it's a micro cable, and I get them mixed up all the time. It's not the cable.
It's micro. It's the connection.
Yeah,
I'm surprised somebody's called you out on that, saying,
"Yeah,
where's this small little cable?"
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing with SD cards. The SD cards that go into most scanners are a micro SD card, except if you've got a TRX2, and that's a mini SD card.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can get confusing, but bear with us. Charlie asks about the WS1040. Does it do DMR? No, Charlie, it does not.
Yeah, DMR, you're going to want to look at the unit inside and the current class of scanners. 436, 536, SDS 100 and 200 are going to be the ones that you want. Give you full DMR capability.
Yeah, and then you got the 996 and 325 as well. But those are paid extra. So the question then comes, what about the TRX 1 and 2? Yes, with an asterisk.
Yes.
So,
it won't trunk, but it'll do conventional DMR.
Yeah, it'll work fine in conventional DMR. It just doesn't trunk them properly. So they seem to work pretty well on low volume trunking systems because it's just checking channels for activity. But if you're going to do a trunking with DMR, you want to get one of the units and pay the extra bucks if you have to.
All right, let's continue on.
Todd has got an EF Johnson UHF radio that uses an SMA Female. Can you use a dual band whip with that or just use a single band? If it's a UHF radio, you could probably get away with using a dual band whip, but you're probably better off just getting a UHF antenna for it. There's no VHF in the radio, so why bother with a VHF an antenna that covers VHF? So
I mean, if it's a UHF radio and you get a UHF antenna, it's a perfect pairing because it's gonna work very well on UHF. If you're getting the dual band whip, it's gonna work okay on both. So why not just go for the gold and just use the UHF single?
Absolutely. And Dale mentions there are slight pin size differences in 50 ohm and 75 ohm F connectors. So make sure you've got the proper connectors on both ends. It doesn't really matter which one you have as long as they're all the same. So make sure that you're using the same connectors plus the male and female so they're all compatible. So we were talking earlier about the little box on the edge of the USB cable. It's not actually called a balun on the USB cables. Those are little noise filters. They're little ferrite pieces of metal that the cable wraps around, and it's just encased in plastic to keep it protected. So, P3JH Jason, I guess his name is, said he suspects Paul had a plan for using all those extra ports on the SDS's radios at some point, and hopefully he told somebody what his plans were before he passed, so that they can continue on with that. So
I can tell you, Rich and I have tried various things to see if it would do this or do that, or plugging in the GPS dongle and the Wi-Fi dongle in the front of the SDS, see if it did anything. I mean,
we've tried a lot of different things. And, the only thing we've been able to find out is that micro USB on the SDS 100 will power the radio but not charge it.
Yeah, I mean, the coolest thing was when I sent you a photo of my Uniden Home Patrol 2 being powered by the SDS 200. The SDS 200 so powerful it can power the Home Patrol 2.
It's the most expensive USB power adapter you can buy.
Yep, that's for sure.
That's the only thing you use it for. The radio, you don't use the radio. You just use it to power your Home Patrol.
Yeah, that's... Oh, man.
Yeah, when you've got that kind of money where you can buy an SDS 200 just to power your Home Patrol, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Dave uses labels on his cable, so he knows which cable and which radio they go to.
Very
so,
smart, Dave.
Yeah.
Totally, a good thing to do. I mean, those label makers are pretty cheap to pick up, so definitely a good thing to do.
Yeah, Joe bought some of those audio mute adapters we spoke about last week. He said he should have bought a new USB 1 cable. We have them in stock again, so they were out for a long time. They're hard to get these days sometimes.
Yeah.
So Tom is one of my people. He uses VMware Fusion and Windows 7 on his Mac. 2 thumbs up for that. My wife likes Fusion. I use Parallels on my Mac, and it works great. And I actually I use it because I use it for our phone system at work, and it works great. And I use it for Sentinel. I use it for other programming. So if you've got a Mac, you're not out of the Windows software stuff. You can still do it. You just need to get an emulator and a copy of Windows. Chris says to be aware of the cheap Chinese aftermarket cables. A lot of them have the counterfeit chips in them that only work with old versions of the drivers. That's kind of what happened with the USB 1 cable. Is they changed chip versions midway through, and the older cables never did work on 64-bit operating systems because they were built when they didn't have them. All Windows were 32-bit, and so they didn't need a 64-bit capable cable. And it wasn't anything they had planned on originally. And then when Windows started going to 64-bit operating systems, which can address much more memory, they were kind of like, uh-oh, now we got to come up with a new cable. And they did, but like I say, they didn't make it visually different than the old one. So, and we didn't talk about this earlier. We probably should have. The GRE Whistler cables for all the GRE scanners except for the TRXs.
I didn't get into that mess of that. It looks like a stereo plug on one end and then a USB on the other. And then you've got the box. There's been variations of that box. It's been blue, it's been black, but the case is see-through, and you got the lights that show that the data's going through. That's a good thing about those lights is you're able to see, okay, so the cable is working properly.
Cable's working, yeah. But yeah, if you get one of these cables, it'll work with most Radio Shack radios since the Pro 95 or the Pro 94 and up. It'll work with most of all the Whistler radios except for the TRXs, and all of the GRE radios that have a computer jack. And you'll always know because it says PCIF on it, on the Whistler, the Radio Shack, and the GRE radios. If it says PCIF, it'll work with that cable. There is an old Radio Shack cable.
Right there.
Yep. There is an old Radio Shack cable that has this plug-in, but it's got a serial port end on it, a DB9 style end on it. Those are only usable with certain radios. And on most of those radios, this cable will also work, but not always. So if you still got one of those old ones, you may have to look for one of those older cables. All right, so Chris says those wire straps that we were talking about earlier, they're great, but he'd rather fight for half an hour untangling the cable he wants. So Chris is also into masochiism, and he prefers to be punished and tortured. So he prefers to try to untangle all this stuff. And I've had unholy messes of cables that I've spent hours trying to untangle. And then when I'm all done doing untangled and finding the cable I want, I throw them all back in a box. And then next time I go in there, I got to do it all again. So, yeah. So Joe said he must love doing his Christmas lights.
I will tell you a little inside thing. The Robin Masters of the show, Richard Barnett, he's the king of having all the cables meshed up into a ball. Mm-hmm. And I've had to a couple of times, unravel the ball of wires for him.
Yeah.
And literally like unraveling. I think there was I'm not too sure if it was a return trip from Dayton or some sort of other scanner project. And he said,
I've seen that box.
and he said, I left you a box. When you get a chance, just see if, see what we can use out of that box and then go from there. So then I go over there and look at the box and I'm like, all right, first I got to figure out where the other end of this cable is. So
you got an unholy mess of crap in that box.
Yeah, I mean, he's done that to me 1 or 2 times out of the 10 plus years I worked out of the office, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go, a little project for me. This will keep me busy for a bit.
Well, earlier this fall, my wife and I went to the Container Store, which is like one of my favorite places in the world, and they have this big, huge box that has all these little compartments that are used for large Christmas ornaments. Well, we figured that it would be big enough for lights, for Christmas lights. And we have tons of Christmas lights here. And so we bought one of those things just for our Christmas lights so we can keep those organized. And it worked really well. And we use a lot of these wire straps for that as well. So, all righty. Couple of thumbs up for our friends over at the Scanner School.
Yeah, definitely. Just want to remind you again. Let me see if we'll pull up that course.
Yep.
Where was it?
Well, while you're working on that,
I got it.
There you go.
So the Scanner School, just as a reminder, they're doing a 2021 crash course. It's free, fast-paced review on what you need to know about scanning in 2021. Go to thescannerschool.com/2021 and you'll be able to sign up for this crash course. It is the day before the Scanner Guys. It's on Tuesday night, January the 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It is a free course. Check it out. Definitely sign up. Phil sent me an email saying this is going to be a great webinar. He was kind of concerned about, how many people we'll have at the webinar. If you love watching this show, load it up on them. And then certainly tell them that the Scanner Guys sent you.
Yeah. It's very informative, very very good stuff. So, other sources for some of these organizing things that we've talked about are Ace Hardware and Hobby Lobby. All those kind of stores will have this kind of thing. So look at them and think creatively. So there was some more question about DMR stuff. DMR's Moto Turbo Plus single site turbo. Any scanners will pick that up. Yeah, any of the Uniden DMR scanners will pick that stuff up. Capacity Plus or Capacity. There's Capacity Plus and there's another term I just can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, the Uniden scanners will pick that up. Some of them are going to be programmed as a single channel trunk. Some of them are as a standard DMR trunking. So. CB writes he doesn't understand why ham radio and scanners don't use the USB-C standard. The USB-C standard is one of many different types of USB-C. The big advantage to USB-C for most people is that it's reversible. So it doesn't matter if it's upright, this way or that way. It's reversible. So you don't. There's always three. It always takes 3 attempts to plug a USB cable in. Push it in one way, it doesn't work. Turn it around the other way, it still doesn't work. Then you put it back to the first way again, and now it works again. So
you have to pay attention.
The USB-C, it works either way.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more expensive, so that's why it's kind of a slow rollout. And scanner technology is usually a couple generations behind the Windows, which is a couple generations behind Apple. So
we talked about this last week. The serial cables that were in the boxes for umpteen years, and then having to purchase the Uniden USB 1 cable, and now finally the scanners have got USB cables in the boxes now. Hallelujah! Now there's USB-C, so it'll take a little bit. Probably there'll be something bigger and better by the time they catch up to USB-C. It'll be something else.
They'll be on USB F or G or something like that at the time. So, So yeah, I'm sure that as soon as Apple goes to USB-D, Windows will probably be catching up to USB-C, and the scanners will be a couple years behind that.
That's for sure.
And the question about the why Uniden won't make a scanner with a detachable plate, they did for a while. Well, they actually made a separate USB head or USB remote head, the RH96 that worked with some of the scanners. It didn't sell very well, and so they stopped supporting that. So
What, the remote head?
yeah.
Oh, it sold very well when Scanner Master was the only one carrying it at that point because everybody wanted it then.
Yeah.
Rich talked to me about it, and he said, well, they still have parts for this remote head. Can we push it? And he said, yeah, I could promote it through social media that we have it exclusively. And sure enough, we did 2 orders of it, 2 batches. Yeah. And because see, that's the thing. If nobody else has it and it's hard to come by, everybody wants it. So, So what we need, Uniden needs to make a remote head, and we can have a limited production run, and everybody and uncle will want it.
Yep. And we'll be the only ones having it. Yeah, that'd be great.
The only ones having it too.
Yeah. So yeah, we would love to be able to do that, but unfortunately, I don't see that happening anytime soon. There are ways that you can use a smartphone with a 536, but we've both tried that, and it's not.
It works well in the house. I like it in the house. It works pretty well. So let's say you have a multi-scanner shack in your hobby room or your den, and you have one scanner in your bedroom or wherever else you listen. So what you can do is you've got a smartphone. So what you could do is connect up that Wi-Fi dongle to the back of the radio, and you can have a secondary radio in your other listening location.
Yeah, if you got 536, you can do that. But that works, but it doesn't work particularly well in a car. If you've got an old smartphone or an old tablet that you can dedicate to it, it might be pretty good. But otherwise, it's just really not not practical. So, and the question was, do I have room on the desk rack for what we were talking about? Yeah, I got plenty of room in here on the desk for that. So, the dorm fridge, Joe says I need to move the drink cooler out of the desk within reach. So I would, but I'm thinking about taking that drink cooler out of here because I don't know if you can hear it on the microphone, but it turns on and off the
I can't hear it. I mean, it's fairly quiet.
I tried to take a nap a little bit earlier this afternoon, and it kept on turning on and off and wake me up. So I don't know. It might go back to the kitchen.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm old. I take naps sometimes. So, and why don't scanners have Bluetooth? So, that was talked about. Whistler was going to put Bluetooth on the TRX 100, but that project got canceled. It's been talked about for years, and I wouldn't be surprised if eventually Bluetooth doesn't come around on scanners, but that's that might happen down the road, but I wouldn't bet the farm on that. Paul, like Joe mentioned, Paul said that at one point that there was going to be interference with the scanner, so it wasn't practical at the time. So maybe one of these days we'll see that, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't hold my breath for it.
Sure.
Yeah. So let's see here. You can get Bluetooth transmitters. Nick Pistols mentioned this too, and I've mentioned that to a couple of people who have called. They're little dongles, they're little boxes that have a small battery and a Bluetooth transmitter. You plug it into the headphone jack of the scanner, and it then makes it Bluetooth capable, so you can connect up your AirPods to your scanner that way. I've not done that recently. I did do that in the past, and it seemed to work pretty good. So, extended warranties. Radio Shack used to sell those all the time, and they make big bucks on it. And we don't sell them here because they're really not consumer friendly.
No,
If something's going to go wrong with the radio, it's going to go wrong quickly. So Todd asked if the keypad for the 396 XT is still being made and sold. People are looking for replacement keypads for some of their older scanners. I don't know. You can try calling Uniden support to see if they've got them. We don't have them, but Uniden support might have them. And there is an independent repair shop that works on Uniden scanners, and he may have some, but I'm not sure if they are still available because they haven't made those scanners in 5 or 6 years. So I'm not sure how long the parts are going to be done. So we mentioned earlier full-size disco will look kind of funny on an SDS 100. There is a discone style portable antenna that Joe's mentioning that he's seen. I've seen them in the past. They're tiny little discones. They're yay high and this big around. You put them on top of your handheld scanner. It looks pretty goofy, and I have no idea how well they work, but yeah, they're out there. Let's see here. Routers often use those reverse SMA connectors. Okay. Routers. Are you talking Wi-Fi routers? Okay. So sometimes the Wi-Fi routers will have those reverse SMAs. Talk about that. We talked about that. Chris said he was listening to a police chase over the weekend. It lasted for 2 hours. That's kind of unusual these days. Police chases are kind of a rare event unless you're in LA these days. They're just too darn dangerous. I've done my share and scared the heck out of me every time, and I'm glad I don't have to do that stuff anymore. Let's see. You can label your adapter bins.
Yes.
And that means you have to put the adapters in the right bins then. I'm usually too lazy to do that.
So it defeats the purpose of the bins.
Yeah. Jim says that Uniden won't sell the battery doors. They tell you to send the radio in. The battery clips, I mean. They did sell the parts separately occasionally, but I guess they're not doing that anymore. So they're making you send the radio in.
When I was looking, it was $19 and change, and I'm like, I'll try the $10 option and see how well that works.
Yeah. Obviously, if the radio's under warranty, you'd have to send the radio in for them to repair. They're not going to send repair parts out to you under warranty, but they will fix it under warranty, but you have to send it in. So it might be worth the $10 to buy the third-party clip. Mm-hmm. So the guy that 3D prints the battery doors or the battery clips for the SDS 100, does he make new battery doors for the 125 AT? I've not seen that.
I'll have to, definitely just search it out on the forums and see if he's got a bunch of components there. I'm going to see how well this works, and he's got a couple other things that I'm going to look into to see how it works. I'm just curious.
So apparently Jim bought 3 of those clips on speculation, and he got them, and they work great. So when you get yours, you'll be happy with it. And his name is John Weinke. Yeah. So if you can look him up on Radio Reference. So I don't have their product. Jonathan is waiting on his, so we'll give you a review on that. But
well, the last time I checked with the tracking, it went. He's in Virginia, so my package went up to Maryland. So I don't know. It's going to go north to go south, I guess. It's a new postal service. We're gonna the parts going to go for a tour.
Yeah, it's going to take the scenic route. So next stop, Portland, Oregon.
I hope not.
Yeah. So apparently there's a couple people are happy with his stuff. He's legit and his products are good. So we should get a 3D printer and make them ourselves. So I don't anticipate that happening, but it would be kind of neat. So Kevin's still waiting on his scanner guy's hat. So apparently that's also being
contact Bombfire They should have a telephone number. The company that handles the printing and so on. Give them a call. If you don't see it, I'm on their website. There's ways to contact them through the website. There's also a help center as well. I would definitely contact them. You should have gotten your hat already.
We don't do the shipping on that. That's shipped directly by the guy who makes the company that makes the hat.
Yeah.
So. Tom says now Charlie asked if we sell the rechargeable batteries. Yes, we do.
Yeah, the Trinergy rechargeable batteries, they have a little bit more ampage than what comes in the package, so it's definitely definitely a good upgrade. Yeah,
they'll last a little bit longer. The ones that we have are 2,500 milliamp hours. The radio normally comes with the 2,300, so you'll get a few extra minutes of operation on the radio before you need to charge it. So Tom says the Texan installed his new antennas, used both Coax Seal and heat shrink. Ain't nothing getting through that. So
no,
that's some professional installation.
Wow,
as they would say in Ohio. Professional. Let's see here. Tram. A lot of those base station antennas you get are made by Tram. And then they're also sold under many different names. So let's see here. SWR reducer. Yeah. Let's see here. It's easier to shorten a cable than to stretch it. Yep.
Yes.
So
that's right.
that's a good way of putting it. So we were talking earlier about using an adapter as a strain relief or as a port protector. Yeah, it's easier to change a $5 adapter than it is to send the expensive radio in for repair to replace the connector. So Chris says it's better to have 6 inches too much or 6 feet too much than 6 inches too long, especially a 600 pair phone cable. Been there, done that. We bought some. We had to move some stuff around, and we bought some 25-foot Centronics 50 extender cables. And when we put it all together, we found out we needed 27 feet. No, we are not live. We are now both dead.
No, we're still alive. No, we're actually live, right now. So, this is another one of these shows that are, here's the current time. East Coast time is 10:20, actually 10:30 now.
Yeah, it's 8:30 out here in Arizona, and I guess that would be 7:30 in LA.
Yeah.
So, we are live.
We are live.
That is, if you are watching this show on Wednesday evening.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you're watching this show tomorrow, then we were live yesterday.
Oh, the funny thing is, we got to get off at 11 because I scheduled a post in case you missed. In case you missed the East Coast feed, you can watch the replays. We got to get off by 11.
Yeah, okay, so we have to finish this up within half an hour.
Yes. Or we will be still live.
Yeah, we'll be still live when we posted the show, the after show. So, yeah.
Okay, so what else do we got here?
All right, so, simple answer, if you got if you need connectors, go to scannermaster.com. We have those on our site. And we have pictures of all of our connectors on the site, too. So if you're not sure, you can look at them. And if you're really not sure, give us a call during hours, and we'll tell you.
Oh, boy. I think I teased something, and now people are chomping at the bit. The antenna, Kevin, that I mentioned is still in the design phase. So it's still being tested. Once it's complete, we will definitely show it off. Rich has left me. He took his headphones off, which is good. So you get the volume pretty loud on those headphones. I could hear myself.
Oh, do you? Do I? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because the microphone's right here. I put the headphones on the table right next to it.
So yeah, it's going to be a rubber duck antenna. I will tell you that. It's a rubber duck type of antenna. We will have more information about it as soon as its final design is available, and of course, we're going to mention it on the show. There's some good things I like about it, and it may be a great thing for a portion of the hobby, certain enthusiasts of the hobby as well. So I'm definitely going to do some beta testing on that as soon as I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joe, the word I was looking for before was ferrite chokes that are on the ends of some of these USB cables. So there's nothing electronic in here. All it is a piece of metal with a hole in it, and the wire comes in, loops around that piece of metal with a hole on it, comes out the other side, and that helps prevent noise from going up and down the line. It's called a ferrite choke. Thank you, Joe. What's the best way to ground an antenna? We can spend an entire show on that, and maybe we will, maybe this spring. When people start to do more antenna work, we'll talk more about antenna grounding.
Right now, my antenna setup is way down in the budget, so hopefully I'll be able to eventually do that, and I may be able to do some photographs of what the antenna setup is entailed. I kind of know what I want to do, whether it's going to be one antenna or two antennas. I'm actually thinking about putting an 800 meg out there and something out there for the railroads. That's basically my primary thing now is the railroads, and everything is 800 megahertz around me. So,
yeah, well, you're lucky. You actually have the ability to put antennas outside. I live in an HOA, so all my antennas are up in the attic. Thank God I got a big attic, so that helps. So, but I would much rather have antennas out. So our next house may have I may not be in an HOA. And if that comes to pass, then I'll have a tower. The wife has already promised me I could have a tower in the new house. So. SDS 200 is a power supply with a scanner built in. Thanks, Joe. That's an accurate statement.
Oops, what did I
do? All right, so all right, and we're getting towards the end here. So Todd asks, he's got a portable DMR radio. Can you use that as a DMR scanner to find the color codes on certain bands to program the channels to receive only? I don't think two-way radios have a way to display color codes that are decoded. So if you've got a DMR scanner, you can.
I think that's what he's asking. If he discovers them on the DMR scanner, you would be able to do that. But the thing is the key thing that you mentioned in your comment is receive only. You definitely don't want to transmit on it by accident. But if you're able to discover it and be able to wrap your head around the programming of it, I don't see an issue with that. You're going to get a little bit more sensitivity on the two-way radio versus on the scanner end of things. Unless it's an SDS scanner, then it's going to be pretty much equal. But then make sure that the radio has a receive only option. Usually it's a checkbox on a lot of these softwares. If it doesn't, I don't recommend doing it. You don't want to. I mean, even though that you're probably going to be extra cautious with it, there's a likelihood of hitting the transmit button, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and you're not licensed to transmit on that channel, so you want to set it for receive only if you can. All right, so but like I say, scanners do have the ability, at least the Union scanners have the ability to display a color code that is on a channel. So just put it into tone search or code search, and the radio will display whatever color code and slot is being used. Same thing with PLs and DPL codes and such. It'll display what it is if you have it in that search mode. We are live, not Memorex, or we are Memorex, or that was a TV commercial back in the when you're a knee high to a grasshopper, I think it was. So Do they make a feed through for a window without drawing a hole? Um, yeah, I have seen them.
They're
There's
like
a
a
company called
flat.
MFJ.
It's a flat cable, isn't it?
Well, you can buy the flat cables. It's got two connectors on either end and a flat piece on the cable. The other things I've seen is a little device that you open up the window, it goes up and down, and you put this in there, and then you put the window down on top of it, and it's got pass-throughs.
But the
What I
window
did,
probably doesn't lock. I'm betting.
that's the issue. So when I had my third floor apartment back many years ago, I just cut a piece of 2x4, or actually 2x2, to the proper length, and I put some weather strip on the top and bottom, and I cut little grooves for the antenna coaxes to go through. Because my girlfriend was the rental agent for the building, so she let me put an antenna up on the roof, ran the cable down to the window, and I had this 2x4, so the window would come down on the 2x4. It would have weather stripping, so it didn't affect the the air conditioning or the heat in the apartment. And they had the coax coming, and it worked great. And that's why if you're in an apartment, make sure you date the rental agent, and she'll let you do almost anything you want.
Unless you're married, then you'll get in trouble.
Well, yeah, that's true. I wasn't married at the time. And unfortunately for her, she didn't. I wouldn't marry her. So
I don't know what conversation's going on here.
it's getting late, so things are kind of veering off. At least we're not talking about male and female connectors anymore.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Did you see the picture of that UP engine that blew its turbo and shredded the engine? I saw that.
I haven't seen that, so I'll have to see.
Oh,
that.
look for it. It's out there. This engine just went kablooey, and the whole back end of the engine, where the locomotive, where the flared radiators are.
Yeah.
That whole back of the engine just blew to bits. It's a dramatic picture, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So Joe says that there are some two-way portables that can show the color codes. But scanners will do that. So just if you've got a scanner that's got DMR, just use that. It's going to be a lot easier, and you don't have to worry about accidentally transmitting.
Yeah.
And there are window inserts. That's what they're called. I think MFJ makes them, and I'm sure that there's some other companies that make them. Let's see here. The guy in the recliner getting blown away. That's Memorex. I remember those commercials from way back before when I used to watch TV. So...
Was it color then?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we were joking about that. If you didn't see, was it last week or the week before?
It was a couple weeks ago. You couldn't identify Bob Ross.
Yeah, I have no idea who these are. And you're talking what that TV show, what the Big Bang Theory? I'd never seen it. I'd heard of it, but I'd never seen the darn thing. So
yeah. Is that everything?
I think that's it, man.
All right. It's 2 hours and 42 minutes. A lot of great questions. I guess apparently we need to limit our slideshow so we can keep this under 2 hours.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you guys for joining us. Yes, there are some photos out there with Rich with hair. There is some hair up there. He just has it short.
Yeah. I'm due for a trim. I'm getting a little shaggy here.
I just want to remind you guys of a couple of things before we wrap up things and call it a night. The Scanner School is doing a crash course webinar. It's a free and fast-paced review of what you need to know about scanning in 2021. That'll be through the Scanner School. So scannerschool.com/2021. Real easy to remember there. So it's for the newbies to advanced users. Everything you need to know to understand about scanner radios. You can sign up for the webinar at thescannerschool.com/2021. That'll be Tuesday, January the 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you know someone that's just getting into the hobby, or you just want to do a little refresher, certainly keep that in mind as well. And then he's doing, I'm just going to roll back one slide. The podcast, which drops every Tuesday, he's doing a 3-part series going over some of the crash course as well. And then he's going to have a really good review during the webinar where I think it'll be interactive. It'll be a live webinar. So part 1, which dropped today, you can listen to his podcast pretty much everywhere, is the basics. Next week on the 19th will be everything to do with trunking. And then part 3 will be all the hardware aspect of things. So definitely check that out as well. I'm just going to roll ahead to a couple of slides so we can wrap up things this evening. We want to remind you about stupid scanner tricks. Send us your photos, your hints and tricks. We would love to see them. Email them to the scannerguys@gmail.com. That's the scannerguys@gmail.com. And if you've got scanner questions, give us a call tomorrow morning after 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time at 1-800-722-6637. If you're not able to call, drop us an email at support@scannermaster.com. And remember that Scannermaster, you can shop it 24/7 at scannermaster.com. Next week, we're going to post a poll, which will be on our social media. You pick the topic for the next week's show. So if you're on our Facebook page, you'll see that poll come up. I'll try to do that hopefully tomorrow morning when I get up. And it'll be 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. Wednesday, January the 20th. So definitely tune in. And Train Aficionado Live coming at you next month. Monday, February the 1st, 2021, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll definitely have a really good show there. So if you're getting into the rail fanning portion of the hobby, definitely tune in. Or if you have some interest into trains, we would love to see you a part of that show as well. And we want to make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe to all of our social media, especially to this channel. Hit the subscribe button down below and hit the bell for notifications. And we can't forget to mention, all of our other social media for Scannermaster, Twitter, and Facebook. Make sure you give them a like or a follow. And the same thing with the Scanner Guys stuff, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. All good stuff coming there. And then if you want, we do have a newsletter for the Scanner Guys as well. We're going to use that occasionally. Go to the Scanner Guys website, which is thescannerguys.weebly.com, and you can check that out as well. I think I have a banner which shows the website right there, so you can jot it down.
There you go.
So there's that. Anything else, Rich, you want to add before we sign off?
Well, Dale reminds us, if you are going to be traveling to the Great Plains, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, make sure you put plenty of heavy rocks in your pocket so you can stay on the ground. Apparently, this time of year, it gets really windy out there. So mind your P's and Q's when you're out there. If it's snowing where you are, drive carefully or stay home. And be safe out there, guys, and wear your masks.
That's for sure. We will be here next week, so definitely tune in. We're looking forward to another show, and we'll go from there. If I buy an SDS. What is this? Barry's asking.
Yeah. Yeah, if he buys the SDS, what is, how are we sure that the radio will arrive unharmed? We do have a 30-day return policy, so if the radio does arrive damaged, we'll make good on it. I don't think we've had a scanner damaged in shipment for months or a year. So yeah, knock on wood. Now, of course, I mentioned that we're going to get dozens of them. But if there is something happens to the package en route, let us know. We'll make sure it gets taken care of.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, the thing is, we use UPS as our primary shipping shipping company, and they do a phenomenal job. I've been at Scannermaster for, it'll be year 13 which I'm entering right now, and you know, I mean, it's a rarity.
Yeah.
It's a complete rarity. So definitely have a great night. We'll catch you all again. And have a good night. Let me just pull this banner off before I forget. So there we go. So I'm Jonathan Higgins.
I'm Rich Carlson.
And we'll catch you again next week right here on the Scanner Guys. Have a good night.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.